Hi, God.
Great. Pending, recording.
Oy vey.
And consent agenda, okay. That's what I thought I was gonna do, okay, good. We ready?
Nope, I'm sorry, no.
It's okay.
Well, you in trouble tonight, huh?
Why is that?
Your
Oh,
wife
yeah.
here?
He's hiding in the back like she does.
Okay, Mayor,
2 years, my wife has only been at one meeting, just so you know.
it is ready now, Mayor.
Ready? Okay. I'd like to go ahead and call to order the City of Oconomowoc Council meeting for Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
If you'd all please rise and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All good, yeah. Thanks.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here.
Alderman Mulder.
Here.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Here.
Alderman Kavieski. Alderman Douglas.
Here.
Alderman Rozak.
Here.
Alderman Zappel.
Okay, on to welcome everyone. It's nice to see everybody here. It's nice that we're all able to get together. And we're going to start with our ceremonial oath of office for the newly elected officials. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to start with the elected aldermen. So if I could ask Alderman Mulder, Alderman Shellpepper, Alderman Rozak, and Alderman Jennifer Altman Cloth. There you are. If you would please come forward and just stand in front of me. Thank you. I am going to ask all of you to raise your right hand, and I will read you the oath, and then I have something to present you with right after. So, and then when we're done, Alderman Altman Cloth, if you would then take your seat at the chambers. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and faithfully discharge the duties to the offices to the office to which you have been appointed, or excuse me, elected? And that is District 1 Alderman Matt Mulder, District 2 Alderman Charles Shellpepper, almost called you Chaz. District 3 Alderman Matt Rozak, and District 4 Alderman Jennifer Altman Cloth. Thank you, and I am.
Suitable for framing, by the way.
Right here.
Your hands. All right, Mayor, if you would please come in front.
No standing O for you.
I'm actually going to stand up there with you. There's more room now. There's only one. Got that done. Good job. And I messed up. I hate it when I mess up.
So again, if you want to make any comments during the public comments section, there are blue cards in the back, and please fill out those blue cards, and any one of our staff will grab one, and we'd love to hear your comments for the council. So we'd like to move forward, and we're going to go into the public hearing for the Wisconsin Harley Davidson conditional use permit. Mr. Gallo.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'll give a brief presentation and introduce this public hearing for you this evening. This is for the Wisconsin Harley Davidson. It's a conditional use permit for outdoor recreation commercial. That's the official title. They're located at 1280 Blue Ribbon Drive. We're holding a public hearing tonight. The parcel that's in question is on Blue Ribbon Drive. It's in the south of I-94. And some of the adjacent uses would be Aurora Hospital in the Village of Summit right here, Staybridge Hotel, Doc Hounds Baseball is on this side. This is a vacant site, and Ace Precision is the closest industrial office type use there. So the request is for a conditional use permit for general outdoor recreation commercial. It's allowed by ordinance 17.108 parentheses 6 of the ordinance. It allows for outdoor recreation. This is a conditional use that would allow this use on an annual basis. They wouldn't have to come back to the city for approvals as long as all of their conditions are adhered to. So some little history is since 2005, that's when they were built, Wisconsin Harley Davidson has been annually receiving what's called a temporary use permit from the planning department. Okay, I started in '06. So they've been issuing a permit for a number of events, at least 12, if not more, events every year. I've been issuing permits. These events are critical to their business model. They're a type of business that brings in people to spend their time and money at their business. We've heard very few complaints about these events. The city allows outdoor commercial activities approved by a one-time conditional use permit. They're asking for up to 17 events to be held annually. We're going to go through those events. And these events bring people into the city from all over, not over the city or the county or even the state, all over the country for their events. So they have these events. This is a typical year. They would showing up to 17. They would have May through October. Bike night is where people come in and they may have some live music on a stage and a celebration. And then they have a barbecue ride, an honor celebration, K9 ride, vets ride, a hero ride. A lot of this is military based. Fire ride, sometimes it's to raise money for various outside agencies. They have the big event is Hometown Rally in September. That's over Labor Day weekend. That's the only one that's a multiple day. That's several days. And then in October, previously they've had Oktoberfest, but in this conditional use it says another bike night. So they're asking for up to 17 events. They might not have that yearly, but up to 17. So this request is allowed as a conditional use in this district, so it is consistent with zoning and land use plan. It is identified within the business park, so it's allowed with a conditional use. There's no rezoning needed. It is zoned commercial. This is the existing site. I just thought I would outline it a little bit. We have 67 Blue Ribbon Drive. A lot of asphalt back here. They do their riders training course. This is where some of the bigger events would be located. They have some green space where they put that tent, and then they have parking on site here. So they're typical events that are just one day. This is your typical layout. They would have everything in gray is parking. So a lot of the parking would be on site. This is to be reserved for riding academy course, used if additional parking is needed. And then they would have a stage with a shelter here, 20 by 24, a band parking, vendor space. This is your typical smaller event. This is what they're looking for the bike nights and things. Again, for parking, they kind of showed primary parking would be here, additional parking when available, not active, and then it may spill over onto the street. This is what a typical stage looks like, and a tent for the bar. They've kind of included that in your materials. Now, the hometown rally I did mention, that's the one larger event. They would have a different plan for this. This brings in a lot more people. One of the main differences is what's circled up there. They have an agreement to have a connection to the Dock Hounds parking lot. That parking lot's never been there. That would be used for motorcycle parking up there, and they would put in a temporary thing to have a pathway to get people into the event from that parking lot. They also have parking at the Fleet Farm that would be shuttled in, and then they would have one-way traffic going out and everyone exits. So the parking for the rally, they work closely with the local fire department, the local police department, as well as the Department of Transportation. They've been doing this for many years. They have a very good understanding of how these things work as safely as they can. They've also put together, and it was included, the full packet was in your materials, a vendor information packet. This covers a lot of things: hours, contact information, parking, safety, weather, situation action plan for any type of situation, inclement weather, etc. So let's talk about the standards that they must demonstrate that they will meet. Hours of operation should be between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. All of their events will end by 10 p.m. except one. The hometown rally goes until 11. Now that event has been occurring for many years until that time, so I kind of feel that's grandfathered in up to 11 o'clock. But again, that's your control, but you know, I feel that's a comfortable thing for one event. Dust control plan, all the events will be taking place on hard surface. The on-site restrooms, yes, they have indoor restrooms in their building. On-site parking, they showed the parking plans and the layouts and comply with all of their zoning ordinance, they do. So the Plan Commission recommended this to the council on April 6th. We're having a public hearing tonight on the 19th. And it's on the agenda later in the evening tonight for action. The staff recommends approve the conditional use permit for the Wisconsin Harley Davidson for outdoor recreation. The conditional use permit that's in your packet, it has many conditions, and I just want to state that I'm not going to say every one, but they address the number of activities, the hours of activities, that these have to be inspected, that there can't be excessive noise, parking is addressed, traffic control, alcohol licensing is addressed, garbage from the event, signs must be, you know, how much and where, fireworks are prohibited, and the Western Lakes Fire Department rules must all be complied with. So it's all covered in that conditional use. As long as they meet these conditions, they don't have to come back to you, but if they violate any of these, then there would be an issue. So I'm available to answer any questions at the close of the public hearing for any questions, and I'll put up I guess a typical layout like this. Thank you.
So the public hearing is now open. Do we have any questions or do we have any comments from the public, the audience here today? I don't have any blue cards for the public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak? Any comments with regard to the public hearing with regard to the Harley-Davidson conditional use permit? So at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing on the Wisconsin Harley-Davidson conditional use permit, and we'll move on with our other agenda items. Thank you, Mr. Gallo. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve minutes for April 5th, 2022.
So moved. Tavieski.
Second, Mulder.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we're going to move on to comments and suggestions from the citizens. Again, if you would like to make a comment on any topic, share your view with the council, please fill out a blue card. What I'll do is ask you to come to the podium, state your name, your address, and the city in which you live, and you have approximately 3 minutes to share your topic or your information with the council. So today we have Representative Barbara Dietrich. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to hearing your comments today.
Well, thank you. It's fun to come to all of you as your constituent this time. I am coming before you tonight because I think you all heard about the decision on redistricting. And I'm not here to debate how we got to where we are, but the decision has been made now that the legislative maps that the state legislature passed will now be the maps that are used for reapportionment this session. I'm here before all of you because it most affects Oconomowoc, in my opinion. The 38th Assembly District, which Oconomowoc is a part of, is staying pretty consistent to what it was. However, in this new reapportionment, the 38th will no longer include the village of Lacon, the town of Oconomowoc, Okauchee, and the village of Summit. So I want you all to be aware of that. The city is still solidly in the 38th. Ixonia will join our numbers, as will the city of Waterloo. But I think it's important in the work that all of you do that you know that these adjacent communities are no longer part of the legislative district. Lac La Belle and the town of Oconomowoc and Okauchee will go to the 99th Assembly District with Representative Duco. The village of Summit will go to the 97th Assembly District with Representative Allen. So as always, feel free to contact my office with any questions. You can see on social media the link to the map so you can drill down to the street level because, believe it or not, some people don't even know whether they're in the city or the town or what municipality they're in. I'm sure you all see that at times. So feel free to access that and we'll be happy to help.
Great. Thank you so much for the update.
You bet. Have a good night.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from citizens in the audience? If not, we'll move on to an update from the senior cohort group. Ginny Hicks. Ginny Hicks is the director at the Oconomowoc Area Senior Center.
This is a little nerve-wracking. There is so much power in this room that you make me shake. So you can just hear what you want to hear here, because I'm going to talk off of these sheets. Thank you, Mayor Magnus. Thank you, council members, for agreeing to allowing me to be here to bring you up to date on the Oconomowoc Senior Cohort Group. My name is Ginny Hicks, and the cohort group was initiated about 8 months ago, back in August, and it was initiated actually by Mayor Magnus with the intention of trying to seek out the needs of seniors in the area, actually in Oconomowoc itself. He invited representatives from the city's senior campuses and along with the Oconomowoc Area Senior Center to join this group. And we did. And he wanted us to meet. We wanted to collaborate. We wanted to provide, hopefully, some insight into what seniors in your city need. So it was a pretty good thing. A representative came from, just so you know who we're talking about here, Evan, Shorehaven, Towner Crest, Wilkinson Woods, Pine View, and the Oconomowoc Area Senior Center. They met, and we met, and we continue to meet regularly under one roof, all of us people under one roof, just like you guys here, along with the mayor and with our city's intern, Megan Little, who, if I might just say, we're going to truly miss her. And she has been a wealth of help to us on the cohort group. So hopefully that position will continue. So here we are, 8 months later. This is, what month is this? I don't know. We're always working off month. But anyway, we're kind of sort of working into the toddler stage of this senior cohort group. I'm going to provide you with some information on 3 specific areas: research or due diligence, collaboration, and accomplishment. The very first thing, research and due diligence, that I want to share with you is that as a child, all of us, we hop, we skip, we jump, we ride our bikes, we go down the street, and the last thing we think about is safety or us getting hurt. As a senior, as me, the slightest crack in that sidewalk, the lip on the edge of where the sidewalks meet, they create a trip hazard to anyone who shuffles their feet down the road. The changing of a walk sign at the corner that goes just a little bit too fast creates havoc with a wheelchair. Locating that button to push, what corner is it? Is that it? Is that it? Is that it? 4 corners down here? We could be sitting there 10 minutes wondering what's going on. Or the poor street lighting. Happened to me just down the street the other night, going down the road, poor street lighting, nothing shining on the black clothing of a gentleman or female woman crossing the street who, oh my gosh, there's somebody there. I know that all of us want safety for seniors, for everybody in our community, including seniors. Because of that, the accessibility subgroup, Mark is back here, he kind of leads that part of us, was formed. They are currently taking pictures, lots of pictures, talking with all sorts of different seniors and discussing safety concerns that seniors have, perhaps from a different perspective than some of the rest of us. I can tell you that if a senior doesn't feel safe, they don't go out. They just don't go out. And if they don't go out, they're isolated. And if it's one thing you, me, we all have learned in the last 2 years, is isolation isn't good for anybody. Another aspect, the second one, is collaboration. As you know, working together towards a common goal can achieve who knows what. Currently, we are working in collaboration with the City of Oconomowoc Police Department. The senior cohort group is currently planning, Meet Our Heroes Senior Public Safety Day. Little excitement, come on, cheer. A special open house on June 14th from 10 to 2 at the Oconomowoc Police Department, along with guided tours, some resources on safety, senior scams, senior services, and definitely a few snacks because seniors love snacks. The open house provides the opportunity for so many seniors to gather together in the same place. Again, one roof. There will be buses from the residential campuses like Shorehaven, and all of them will provide buses and bring them to the police department for touring. Silver Streak will provide free transport to all city seniors to come to the event. And if you want to volunteer and help that day, just let me know, let any of us know, because there's plenty for you to do, all of us. The third area is accomplishment. Suggested by one senior in passing, what can the City of Oconomowoc do for you? Make me a directory that I can see and read. Oh, we have them. We should pass them. Would you? You can have one. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's just a little bit larger print. It had Megan's expertise in laying some of that out. The committee made a lot of sense out of it and thought it was a great idea. So it was put together, and there's key contact information regarding places within the city that seniors typically want to connect with. It might be perhaps an easier thing to accomplish, but just think about it. One comment from one senior can affect many people. Moving ahead, what will we do? We'll reach out to maybe senior apartments, maybe religious groups, maybe who knows where, to gather information and the needs from seniors from around the city. Definitely thinking transportation is our worst enemy. That may come up. And who knows, one person's input may make the change. And I'm closing. I think my time is up, probably a 30 seconds I have. What I know is this, that everybody on the senior cohort group, all those representatives have one passion in common, and that's the passion for seniors in our community. It provides a great opportunity to collaborate, research the needs of senior residents, and help provide a fun, happy, and safe place to live in Oconomowoc, which is what you are all about. Thanks for the opportunity to fill you in.
Council
And-
members, does anybody have any questions?
Questions?
Alderman Kavieski.
Yeah, I know, right? Surprise, surprise. Transportation is a big thing, and staffing for senior living is a huge thing. Is there any efforts in taking that cohort and the power of that and working with the greater Oconomowoc communities that would include Three Pillars and those other senior-focused providers to help create that labor pool?
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
Good thoughts. Right now, we're sticking with the city of Oconomowoc. Whether or not, I'm just going to speak here for, just my thoughts are that Oconomowoc has always been the Oconomowoc area, hasn't it? The Oconomowoc area school district, the Oconomowoc area this, that, and the other. And you, who represent the city, have your boundaries that you can't go beyond. People like me can cross over. People like you cannot. As of now, no, Alderman, nothing is working on that. But I'll see Diane tomorrow night at Three Pillars. Maybe we'll talk about it.
And to add to that, because it's a really good question, there's been a lot of discussions of bringing in the other groups outside of city limits, and that's still an option. But the group's goal was, let's put it together, let's actually implement something, let's get our act together first, and then we can expand. So I think expanding has a huge potential, but that's going to be up to you and your team. So
Yeah, thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, on to our next item. What I'd like to do is ask council, without objection, would you be okay if we moved item 12, which are the mayoral citizen reappointments with council confirmation, next, which allows people that have come, in case you may want to ask their questions, and then we'll go back to the regular agenda. Any objection? Okay, without objection, we'll have our clerk discuss. You have in front of you a list of reappointments and new appointments to different committees. And first of all, I'd like to thank all of those folks. There are a lot of people in the city that give of their time, especially on all of these committees, to help the city run. All of these volunteers are very, very much appreciated. So we'll open it up to the council. You have the packet in front. Diane, do you want to make any comments before we go forward?
Sure. I just wanted to say that I did send you 2 emails earlier today with applications for all the individuals that the mayor is reappointing that we have on file. I do apologize that they were not in your packet. The mayor did ask for that to be in the packet, but I did not get all that in. We spent some time gathering as many as we could. We are missing one, and that is for the Architectural Commission, Kent Johnson. We do not have one on file. So everybody else you should have received in the 2 emails, as well as you have a packet at your station. And the yellow highlighted names are the ones that the mayor is looking to reappoint, and he needs council confirmation for that. Thank you.
We do have one new appointment, and I thought maybe it might be smart to start there. So Mr. Denny Day, if you could come up to the podium. We're really fortunate to have Mr. Day here in our community with his incredible experience in law enforcement. And it's my goal that council approves my recommendation to put him on the police commission. So, Mr. Day, do you have any comments for the council? And then we'll leave it open for them for any questions.
I could ramble on for a while. Hopefully you've received my resume. We have lived in the Oconomowoc area now for 15 years. My family and I have lived in 7 different states through the military and through the FBI. We have moved around quite a bit. I've seen a lot of different police departments. Some work well, some don't work so well. One of the things that specifically has to do with Oconomowoc, in order to be a chief in this state, you have to go to the National Academy, the FBI National Academy. If you don't have that on your resume, you're not going to be a chief. I was the one that selected for the last 10 years those officers throughout this state that went to the National Academy. There's probably not a chief or a sheriff or even fire that probably doesn't know me in this state. In my current position, I have retired as a special agent, and then the Bureau hired me back as a contractor, so I still work for the FBI, I still go to work every day. But that was kind of a family decision, more money, more time with my family. But to give you just a snapshot of the breadth of the things that I've worked on over the last 4 years, whether it was Jakubowski, whether it was Jamie Kloss, whether it was the Beaver Dam, where we burned down the building on purpose there, whether it was 2 years ago, over 67, the gentleman that escaped. I ran those operations in conjunction with the locals. I was at every one of those. And then the last 2 years, one of the reasons why I got tired and I never got to go home and I retired was all the riots in Milwaukee and all the riots in Kenosha, or down in Racine. Literally, I never went home, so I ran those operations as well. So I give you that thumbnail to let you know that when it comes to Fire Police Commission, there's things that could be just professionalized a little bit better. And I hope to bring a lot of experience to that. And pending your questions, that's all I have.
Questions from council? Thank you very much. Alderman Ellis.
That's a very impressive resume.
Thank you.
A lot of respect. You seem to be very busy. Are you going to have time to do this?
So in my former position, the answer would have been no. And politically, I don't even know if I could have held this position. But because, let's see if I can explain this. In simplest terms, I'm no longer a gun toter. I don't carry a badge and a gun anymore. I retired from that position. The Bureau hired me as a contractor, so I don't have to work 70 hours a week any longer. I literally have a 9-to-5 job. And regardless of what goes on, there could be an explosion downtown in Milwaukee. I still go home when it's time to go home. What I currently do right now is do background investigations. So people that are trying to get into the Bureau, people that are interns, there is a whole list of paperwork that they have to do. I have to make sure all of that is correct. If not, I have to send out more leads to make sure, like NCIC checks or police checks or talking to your neighbors or whatever. That's the stuff that I do now. So it's like night and day. I have tons of time now. So yes, I can.
Alderman Rozak.
Mr. Day, thanks for coming in. I noticed you're already on the Zoning Board of Appeals, so we thank you for that. That used to be my role before I was an alderman. I loved it. I don't know if you like it or not, but.
Had fun.
Okay. You and I have been talking about trying to get on the police commission for some time, and I appreciate the mayor appointing you. I think you're going to be an excellent pick. You mentioned bringing some additional professionalism to the fire or police commission. Could you just expand on that a little bit more on what you hope to bring, or what you hope your experience brings to the table for the police commission?
I've seen small departments and I've seen large departments, and I'm only going to go off of hearsay, although I do know the chief here, and I think most of the officers here know me as well. I'll put it this way. We always used to say with my gun, people would say, well, you take your gun to church. Well, I don't need it until I need it. And then when I need it, everybody wants me to have it. So when you look at your police department, the way that it is run professionally, the way you promote people, the standardized questions, you don't need that until you need it. Until somebody has been wrongly not promoted and lawsuits come, the first thing that they're going to look at is, well, what do you have? What are the SOPs that you have in place where people are promoted? Why are they promoted? Do you have time and grade, education, what type of training that you have? I'm not suggesting that you already don't have that. From what I've heard, it can be improved upon. And I bring experience, again, of not just local areas, I bring it from across the country. So I've been involved with lots of departments this size. Some are way more professional, and I think sometimes you get to the point, professional is probably not the word, legalistic to where you just shut it down. That's not what I'm suggesting. But there are some things that you can do as a legal guy that can save the city a lot of heartbreak down the road. So,
I appreciate the answer. Thank you for your application.
Alderman Douglas.
Mr. Day, we've had conversations one-on-one, known you for a while too, through my dad. I have a lot of respect for you. I'm really happy that you're retired and you have more time on your hands so you can help out the city in this role. And I think it's a fantastic addition to the city, so.
thank you, appreciate it.
Alderman Kavieski.
I echo, but I also want to give the citizens of the city some comfort, and that you're going to help elevate what the commission does, not taking away from anybody that served previously on the commission, but in a growing community with a growing force and everything that is very dynamic in today's society. You've seen more than most. That experience is, and the depth of which you bring is hard to find. And I'm appreciative that you're here in our backyard and that you have the time to serve now, because we're in that transition to the next step up. And I look forward to seeing your impact on the commission.
Thank you, and that's a very good way to put it. Things sometimes get stagnant, and everybody's comfortable, hey, we're good, we've been this way for the past 30 years. Sometimes it's time to look at it and say, well, what do we do going forward? So,
Well, thank you very much. Council members, not everyone is here for their reappointments. It's difficult to do that. Some that we knew couldn't make it for sure, we'll bring to you in a couple weeks. But at this point, if you'd like to ask any questions, you're more than welcome to. We'll see if that individual's here. If not, then at some point we'll move on to request your approval of these appointments. Alderman Rozak.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate Diane getting this information to us. I feel like I'm sometimes in my own little echo chamber on this stuff, but I've confirmed this with the mayor and with others that we have asked for several times to have resumes for these folks, and I think maybe some people don't always have a resume, or it's hard to get a resume, and I talked to the mayor about this before the meeting. I think it's important that when we have these people coming in, I mean, these are big roles. Some of these really, really affect policy on very intricate levels that sometimes we don't actually get another crack at. Library board, police commission, park and rec to some degree, we sometimes don't get another crack at that planning commission. So these are really important roles, and I really hope after this meeting that whoever applies, number one, has to be here. They have to be here to answer questions, whether we ask questions or not. To be here with one time in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years doesn't seem like much to ask for someone that wants to be appointed. The other thing is, if they don't have resumes, I think at least some type of letter, like a paragraph describing their time in the community or what they hope to bring to whatever board we're appointing them to, would be helpful for us, because we have to evaluate them. I trust the mayor and the city staff to do a good job vetting these people, but ultimately we have to approve it. And this isn't like a Senate confirmation or something where this is going to be like an all-day affair, but I think it's nice just to have a little bit extra information in front of us when we're making that decision. And today we got this stuff pretty last minute. So who isn't here? Do we know who's here, or is it better to say who is here?
What I would do is I would just ask if there's someone you'd like to talk to, if you'd call out their name and then they can stand and come up to the podium.
Well,
That's probably the most efficient way, because all of these people, the next people have all been in front of you at one point in time.
So these people, everyone else other than Mr. Day are all reappointments, is that correct? Okay. Do we know the timeline on these folks? I know Mr. Frederick has been on Planning Commission for 1 term, I think.
On Plan Commission?
2 terms? 1.5, okay.
I can tell you that we went to find some of these applications to see if we even had any. Some of these people date pre-2004 from original appointments.
Wow.
So they've been serving for a long time, and sometimes they are moved onto different committees throughout the years as well. But they have all served, and you know, they come to the meetings, they participate, and they still want to be appointed.
The only person I really had any questions for at this point was the gentleman that's applying to the library board. Benjamin Nanki?
Yeah. David Mankey, are you here, sir?
Ben,
Great.
Ben
Come
is
on
here.
up. That was verbose.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Well, great. Thank you for coming.
Is it
And thank you for coming, because I knew you couldn't make it in 2 weeks. So
Yes, thank you for that.
coming
It's
tonight.
Nanki.
Nanki? Okay, that was the question, Nanki. How long, is this your first or second appointment? This is your second appointment to the board?
Yes, I have been on for 2 years. I came in 20, I think right when the pandemic started.
Well, we appreciate you reapplying or re-upping. I do have two questions for you. One, do you agree that with the library board's strategic plan, namely that books on all sides of an issue should be presented to the public for viewing?
That's a very good question. I know that we have a collection and distribution policy that Betsy puts forth, and that's really her discretion. It's the board's too, but yeah, we want pretty much the books that we want represented at the library. We want to represent all sides. So, and we want to, main things are we want to give everyone as many choices as they can possibly get, and we also want to leave it to the parents to choose what everyone reads, you know, if we're talking about things for younger people, so.
Well, yeah, that leads me into the next question. You must have been prepared for this. Do you think that there should be a policy in place for age-appropriate materials for 3 to 5-year-olds in the reading sections?
I would leave that more to Betsy and how we figure that out.
So you don't think the library board should have a position with regard to that policy decision?
That'd have to be something we'd discuss at the board.
Is that something you'd be willing to discuss as if I reappoint you as a board member?
If it comes to the board and we want to discuss it, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I don't have any
Alderman
questions, but I say
Shellpepper.
I've served with Ben the last 2 years. I think you've been a great board member, and look forward to voting for your confirmation
Sounds good. Thank you.
appointment tonight. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other people that council would like to bring up, ask any questions? If no further questions, I'd like to entertain a motion for the approval of all the appointments as listed.
So moved.
Second, Mulder.
Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis,
I have a question.
Oh, we're past that?
We are past
yeah.
that.
So we need your decision, sir.
Nay.
Alderman Spiegelberg,
Aye.
Alderman Mulder,
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper,
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Douglas,
Aye.
Alderman Rozak,
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Congratulations on your vote, Altman Cloth.
Congratulations to
What?
Diane for
No,
saying it right.
No, you're able to vote, which is great. Oh, wonderful. We're going to move on, go back to our regular agenda. We have 3 consent agenda items. Unless something needs to be removed, I would entertain a motion for the 3 consent agenda items. Item 8A, B, and C.
So moved.
Second, Ellis.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Move on to our committee reports. Finance, consider act on budget amendment for the first quarter 2022 grants and amendments. Ms. Sullivan Murray. And again, if folks have to leave, please thank you again for coming for the citizen appointments, and we appreciate your energy. Lori.
Great, yep. So before you are the first quarter 2022 budget amendments and grants or donations to council. So These are donations that come in or grants that we get or budget amendments that needed to happen that aren't part of our budget. So it's all a budget amendment so that the donations that come in, we get the authority to spend them, okay? So I'm explaining that for our new alderman here. So we have $21,000 worth of grants and donations this quarter. A big one of that is the developer tree purchases, and that's really just a payment that we get from developers ahead of time so that the trees can be planted in the subdivisions after the houses are built along the terrace or on the sidewalk. Otherwise, we have police donations here for some more for the body-worn cameras and a lot of donations for parks here, for a skate park and for the tennis equipment. The other item on the agenda for this is a budget amendment for the purchase of laptops and docking stations for PD squad cars. These are laptops that we had to buy to conform to the WCC dispatch. We did not have these in the cars before. They had computer access, but they didn't have laptops in there.
Any questions for Ms. Sullivan Murray from council?
I'll move to approve budget amendments for first quarter 2022 grants and amendments as presented.
Second, Ellis?
Any further discussion, comments? Call roll, please. Oh, excuse me, I didn't see you. Alderman Spiegelberg.
On the committee level, I had thought about dividing these two items to stay consistent with representing the citizens that wanted to keep dispatch local, but I think I won't do that at this point because I think now we need to give these guys the tools to do their job. But I do want to say that, as always, because this is a budget amendment, we need a supermajority of 6. So.
Any further discussions? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Douglas?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth?
Aye.
Under our next item, consider act on resolution 22-R3029, authorizing the application for the Wisconsin DNR stewardship grant for the John and Lavinia Rockwell Park. Mr. Hepner.
Good evening. Tonight, we're looking to get the resolution authorized, which allows me to apply for a Wisconsin DNR stewardship grant. We're requesting $250,000. This will be for the development of the John and Lavinia Rockwell Park. It's due on May 1st, so we're about 80% done with it, but one of the formalities is to do the resolution. So that's what we're asking for tonight. We likely would hear in September if we're successful or not. And I will say I'm confident in this one based on the development and it being water-based and what the point system sets up, but nothing in life is guaranteed. So that's our hope.
Like to entertain a motion? Alderman Rozak?
A real quick question. I see that we have a parks update later on, Craig. Is that going to address where we're at on funding for this?
Yes.
Okay.
But I can share with you if you like.
Could we get a preview? Because if we do I know we've got the 300 set aside for some improvements that we assigned last year in the budget cycle. So if we get the 250, that's 500. Do we lose the budget money, or do we lose the grant money if we don't spend it in X amount of time if we don't have enough fundraising? Do you see where I'm going with that?
Right, so I'll give you a quick update. We have the $300,000 from the city, plus the previous money, which is about $90,000, so we're about 400, just under 400,000. As of right now, the Friends Group and the Build a Park group has raised 142,000. Their plan, as of last Park and Rec Board meeting, was to raise 550,000. So quick math would be 550 in private donations, 250 in the grant, and about 400,000 from the city. That gets us to the 1.2 million, which is the ballpark we're looking at. So this is a 50-50 matching grant, so we do have to have 250,000, which we do both with the city money, and we already have 142 private, which I expect will go much higher soon.
So thank you for, so can I cross off the staff report then, item 19B now?
You can cross off the whole thing if you want.
No, that report has other things in it.
I have 39 PowerPoint slides to reveal.
39, great,
Yes.
okay. I look forward to it. So the second part of the question was, if this grant, if we don't have enough money pulled together for the full spend, When's the grant money run out? Is there usually a cap in this, like it's got to get spent in a year or 2
They,
years?
yeah, in general, for development grants, they like to have it about a 2-year period from acknowledgement. Officially, it usually doesn't get signed till like early in the next year.
Okay, good.
So early '23, we'd have about a 2-year period. You can get extensions, though. We've been successful with those if needed, but I fully expect within that 2-year period to make this happen.
Thank you.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Matching funds from the city have to be spent on a certain item at the park, or it's just?
No, it's actually open-ended in a sense that it's for development of the park.
Okay, so as long as we have at least 250, we're good.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have, the way I'm lining up the cost estimates, you have to share a cost estimate level. Between all the walkways, the front porch, there's probably $800,000 already on the cost estimate. We have to match 250,000 of it. So we're well above what they'll require.
Right, but it, I mean, I'm just thinking like in terms of certain features at the park, you know, they don't, the funds don't have to be dedicated towards those specific features. Anything at the park, we spend it on the park, we're good to go.
With like the only exception, I think, is public art.
Okay, yeah,
So I've vetted it out with them to see what matches, but almost everything within that park
okay,
qualifies.
good enough, thank you.
I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second, Spiegelberg.
Any further questions, comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
On to our next item, consider act on resolution 22-R3030, authorizing application to participate in the Wisconsin DNR Lacon grant for the Northeast Regional Park. Mr. Raptor.
Very similar to the other one, but a slightly different grant. So it's, again, through the Wisconsin DNR, but it's for Lacon funding, which is land and water conservation from the federal government. This is actually a little more open-ended. It can be used for active parks. So that's why we're applying it to the Northeast Regional, planning on future development, whether it's ball diamonds, soccer fields, whatever that turns out to be. Again, it can be kind of general like that. This is also a May 1st deadline, and we would find out probably similarly September, October. This one's a little more questionable if we'll receive it. It's kind of the stewardship money happens first, Lacon second. It really depends on how many people apply and what they ask for. But again, we'll be asking for $250,000 for this grant.
Alderman Kavieski.
Is there a specific project or use within the Northeast Regional Park that this will be tied to that'll help with the evaluation for it being qualified and awarded?
It's, again,
General, I know,
similar to
but-
the other one, it's general in a sense. What we're planning on putting in it is athletic fields, development of, so that can include ball diamonds, fencing, lighting, grading, all that kind of thing.
Like to entertain a motion.
So move, Kavieski.
Rozak, second.
Any further questions, comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to our next item, under protection and welfare, consider act on resolution 22-R3027, granting new 2021 to 2022 Class B intoxicated liquor fermented malt beverage to Blue Ribbon Baseball LLC, the Lake Country Dockhounds.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We have received an application from Blue Ribbon Baseball LLC for a full Class B liquor license for their stadium property. They are licensing the entire complex, so the whole area, to serve and sell alcohol. They are in the former TID 3 tax incremental district, and per legislation, the Pabst Farms was given, or was, I guess, granted 8 liquor licenses for that area. This falls within that area. So Pabst, Bill Neiman has sent a letter to the city surrendering to transfer that license to this new business. And it it now takes their original 8 licenses, they still have 6 left. This was the second one of the 8. The license does expire on June 30th of this year because it's being applied for in April. So they will have to come forward for renewal in our June licensing period time. And then, of course, that license would be granted for the next year. So these are yearly licenses. They meet all Chapter 12 and state statute requirements, so therefore I recommend granting the license. Oh, and they are looking at being open on May 20th, and I believe, I'm not sure if that's their first baseball game at the stadium, but, but they will be, I think they have an event planned on May 18th. They might be looking at, so they're, they're looking at doing this in May, so starting up in May, and that's why we're bringing it forward now.
Questions or comments from council? Alderman Rozak.
Just that this is exactly what I think the council 5 or 6 years ago envisioned coming into this area, and why we fought so hard to take the unused city liquor licenses back, help Pabst Farms to get the other, special economic licenses, so that these things could happen out there, and also development could happen here in the downtown. So, in my opinion, years of hard work has really paid off, and it's benefited Pabst Farms and it's benefited the dock hounds. So I'm glad that what we did years ago, and that was a hard fought effort, and it was the right thing to do, and it's panning out and paying huge dividends for the city.
I'd like to entertain a motion.
So move, Kavieski.
Rozak second.
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Douglas?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth?
On to public services, consider act on resolution 22-R32028, awarding the contract for design engineering services for Lac La Belle boat launch and parking area. Mr. Hepner.
Good evening again. We sent out an RFP for design engineering for Lac La Belle boat launch in March. We received 4 proposals back. Our selection committee consisted of Mark Fry, Jimmy Hall from the Parks and Recreation Board, Dave Stozer from DPW, Jennifer Frumming from our Recreation Division, and myself. We scored them on the normal process that we do with all RFPs. One of them, JSD, did not make the 80%, so we did not open their cost envelope. The rankings for MSA was the highest at 94, SEH was 91.6, and SSE was 81.2. Once we opened up the cost envelopes, as you can see the cost, there was substantial difference with one of the firms. But despite that, MSA still was the highest scoring and ranked firm. They have done much work in boat launches. They have a waterfront actual group for their division. They've most recently worked with Mauston and Lake Delton on boat launches. We're very confident in them. I've worked with them in a prior project as well in West Bend. So MSA is the highest ranked, and we would recommend them going forward. At the committee discussion, there was the question, I think it's a good thing to talk through, is of cost sharing. So our contract right now would be a cost of not to exceed $157,630 plus a 10% contingency. Our funds would be coming from TIF 5 funds, and there was $200,000 set aside budgeted for this project. The Parks and Recreation Board did recommend hiring MSA and moving that forward to council for their recommendation. So I think it's worth having that discussion. I also want to get your opinion if you think that the process and the selection of the firm made sense and was correct as well. So,
Open questions for council. Alderman Shellpepper.
Well, it's my understanding SSE didn't, I mean, once you looked at their packet, they didn't really even understand the project. So I don't think we can give their cost estimate too much weight.
credence, yeah, just
Credence.
real quick on the hours. They had listed 543 hours of time. SEH was 1,000 hours and MSA was 1,076. So we do feel they were missing major portions of this and maybe didn't quite have the project, so I would agree with that assessment.
Yeah, so I think it's the right call. I think, I'm interested in hearing more of the discussion that happened during the committee in terms of cost sharing on the front end. I'm all for this project. I think it's an important project for the city, not only the city, the entire community. Lots of people who live on the lake don't live in the city. So it's important we get these neighboring municipalities on board and understanding up front before we start really diving into it, what that, sharing agreement is gonna look like, so. But we need to make sure this project gets done as well.
And for the community, in the committee section, there was a recommendation to develop a memorandum of understanding to try to make sure we have something down on paper as to the cost sharing with the other 3 municipalities. There has been a verbal agreement to do that, but it was a recommendation that we put that on paper. Also stated was that we're not in a big time crunch here, and that might be something that the council may or may not want to do. It's up to you folks in whatever type of motion you may or may not want to say. Alderman Riffle, who you were not here, so do you have a comment?
You were promoted or demoted?
No, I
can't
didn't know
tell.
who the third municipality that would be sharing. Because
Us,
there's only,
Oconomowoc and LaBelle.
that's,
Town,
oh,
city, and LaBelle.
you said the other three.
There's 3 municipalities, but actually
Total.
the LaBelle Lake
Sorry.
District is a 4th entity.
Correct, that's actually
So there
true.
really are 4 partners
There are
total.
4 partners.
DNR.
DNR through a grant process, yes.
Yeah.
So
Alderman, go first. Alderman Kowalski?
Sorry.
No,
So
that's okay.
It was good discussion at the committee level, and Alderman Shellpepper is correct. The boat launches, and incredibly important thing, not only for the city, but for the greater Oconomowoc community and our visitors that come to enjoy Lac La Belle. With all of that said, there is a dynamic funding of this project that includes the surrounding municipalities that share shoreline, the Lac La Belle Lake Management, the DNR, and other potential funding resources, such as the TID that this money would come out of, all of which I think is in the best interest of everyone to have that memorandum of understanding in regards to that cost share and setting those parameters or structure in place before we were to move along this particular road. And with the mayor's acknowledgement that it's not necessarily time sensitive that we pass this today, I would recommend that we provide guidance to staff to create that memorandum of understanding that would engage the elected bodies in the surrounding communities as well, because they would need to have full buy-in to that, then come back to us and then move down the engineering road. With that in mind, my question to you is, how long would this price be available to act upon?
That's one of the notes I wrote between 6:30 and 7:30 when I was hanging out in Mark's office. I need to ask the firm that in using bids, it's 60 days. It might be different in professional services, so I'll have that conversation. It will take a little time to do an MOU, obviously. It's not like in 2 weeks we can turn this around and bring it back to you. I'm sure they'll have to vote and have those conversations as well. And timing, as I mentioned in the committee, we're looking at probably during the summer and fall doing most of the design work. I think that can happen. There's a lot of public input. There's some observations of how the traffic flow and the boat launch works. But to get it done by the end of the year, I think can happen. The other piece is the DNR, the Recreation and Boating Facilities Grant. It's a substantial number, and we want to do it right. There are 4 times you can apply for it throughout the year, basically quarterly. September 1st is the next one, but I think November 1st itself is actually a good one to get. So as long as we can apply to one of those 2, then I think we're still in decent shape. But we'd want to keep things moving along. I don't want this to drag out for, 3 months and not getting anywhere.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Well, and that's how I feel. I mean, I understand, it doesn't need to happen tonight. It's not time sensitive as in tonight, but we need to keep the project moving forward. We need to get buy-in from the neighboring municipalities. So I don't want to give this body the impression that we can slow walk it either. It's important. We need to keep it moving along.
And I want to basically be clear. They're on board to do it in the same way they've done other projects with Lakefront. So we have the verbal agreement to do that. And so this is just another step, which is fine to do. So, but we have to get them to, then they have to go through their municipalities to get them to sign off, so everybody's happy with it in that fashion. But I can tell you for sure, we can get a memorandum put together very quickly, and we'll make it a priority because we don't want to have a negative effect on the timeline. But it should not be a major issue. But when you start putting these things down like this, we don't know. But remember too, when the TIF was set up, this money was already budgeted and allocated by a different council. That's why we did the process the way we did it. But we did have those discussions with both the village of Lac La Belle and the town of Oconomowoc. So they know exactly how we wanted to go forward, and they were willing to share. So it's up to you as to how you want to go forward. I had Alderman Rozak first.
Here's what my thoughts are, is that we table this until we get a memorandum of understanding in front of us. The mayor was prescient a little bit when he said that memorandums of understanding aren't always, worth the paper they're written on. Ask about the lawsuit and everything we went through with Fowler Lake Village across the street. We had a poorly drafted memorandum of understanding that got us into a hell of a lot of trouble. But I will say a memorandum of understanding is better than a verbal agreement that we don't have in front of us. So
I would agree with that.
yeah, so I think we should table this until we get that MOU in front of us. And once it's in front of us and we're happy with what that, and I don't think it has to be 18 pages long. I think it can be pretty simple that, hey, we agree on a cost split and here's the split based on square footage attached to the lake or whatever. I don't care as long as we're happy with it and you guys are. I think, we'll be
So
satisfied.
question I have for council. I hear the direction you want to go, which is perfectly fine. Do you want to review the memorandum of understanding before we bring it to the other two municipalities? Or do you feel comfortable with the staff and our legal counsel to draft that and then take it to those groups to move it forward? How would you like us to proceed? Alderman Kavieski.
Personally, I'm fine with you guys drafting that, because ultimately, those elected bodies in the surrounding communities will have to look at that and approve it as written or adjust it to what they feel is fitting for their community. So, and that's another differential, I think, in a verbal discussion between leaders of communities and the electeds that are associated with the budgetary spend, because ultimately those could not line up at the end of the day. So a memorandum of understanding puts it before the body that's responsible for the budgetary item, which again gives us greater cooperation when it comes down to writing that check. So I'm cool with you guys doing
Okay.
it.
What I'll probably do, if this is
can
okay,
send
is
it
we'll
out
go ahead as a staff and put that together. I would just ask Alderman Rozak to put one set of eyes on it as a representative of council, if you guys concur. That will help us with the process. With his legal skills, I think that would be very much appreciated, Matt, if you would be willing.
Yeah, I think that's fine, because
I just don't want to end up in a lawsuit. I don't want to end up with, all of a sudden, we spend 3 months doing something that should not have taken 3 months. And that can easily happen in this world. So if I'm understanding, we're tabling it.
Yeah,
We're not addressing the motion, and you have given or you've given city staff direction to put that memorandum of understanding together with one set of eyes from council coming from Alderman Rozak, and then we will then present that to the two other bodies. And right now, we can't release any money or approve any RFP until all three municipalities have signed off, or all 4 entities. How long that will take, folks, I don't know. But what I can do is he will get this started right away and get the details to him and try to do as quick as we can.
Thank you, Mayor. Motion to table, item 9A.
Second, Ellis.
Wait,
There- just-
I think we should motion to postpone, not table, because postpone gives us a more specific time to bring this back around. Table is indefinite, I believe.
If you table it, you then have to bring it to council to take it off the table, to bring it back.
that's
Am
fine.
I correct?
I removed my
It's-
second.
I mean, that's
one
the
amendment.
way I've,
It's of no consequence.
I'll amend it then to just say motion to postpone, that's fine.
And I'll second the postpone.
okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
On to consider act resolution on awarding construction management services contract for the 2022 street maintenance projects. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mayor. Item before you tonight is for the construction management of the 2022 street maintenance projects. The construction project was actually to the Common Council at their last meeting 2 weeks ago, with Wolf Paving receiving the job. As our procedures are in the city, the design engineer of that project puts together hours that they assume would take to fully watch and manage the project based on certain timelines and criteria set forth in the contracts that we have. We took those hours, sent out an RFP, mailed out to 7, received 2 responses back, one from SEH, one from Rukert Milky. Both firms are known by the city. Myself and the Assistant Director of Public Works, David Stoizer, did the review on them. SEH's submittal was slightly better. They ended up with 2 more technical points than Rukert Milky, and then their cost was, based on the submittals, about $8,000 lower. So we're recommending SEH for the $220,000, along with the 10% contingency of another $22,000 for roughly $242,000 on the project. When you look at the numbers that were submitted when we were approving the construction management was only about $210,000 in that document. We're confident that this number will come in lower because we have removed some of the projects from the street work. That was done by change order last time as part of the approval process. This is an hourly contract, so we will only be paid for the billable hours that they're actually on it, so we know that the project will come in lower. So we are recommending SEH for the $220,000.
Questions, comments from council? I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Ellis.
Any further comments or questions? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Next up are Plan Commission items. We have 4 items, and I'm just going to have you start with the first one, Jason. And let's go through them one by one, please.
Thank you. Item 10A on the meeting agenda is a certified survey map for the Prairie Creek Ridge subdivision expansion areas. Just give a brief overview. This was lands that were annexed to the city in February of this year. They were zoned in March of this year, and what this certified survey map does is it divides one lot into 2. One lot will be 15 acres, and lot 2 will be 18 acres, and this proposed land division complies with the zoning that we did. We did commercial on the east side and residential on the west side, so this just matches what we put in place already just in a month of March to create the zoning for it.
Questions or comments from council? I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
And our next item, please.
Item B on the agenda is a certified survey map in the Paps Farms Commerce Center. It divides one lot into 3, located at County Trunk Highway DR in Blue Ribbon Circle North. This is a 33.8 acre site, currently zoned business park, and the applicant would like to divide the single lot into 3 different lots, one being 17.3 acres, one being 8.2, and the other being 8.2 acres. The applicant is here, and they have indicated at Plan Commission that they have incredible interest in developing all 3 of these. We've tried to develop this as one parcel for over 20 years, and it just didn't work out. So they do have interest now in the 3 individual smaller lots. Plan Commission did recommend approval of this.
Questions or comments from Alderman? Alderman Kavieski.
So this is zoned industrial,
Zone Business Park.
business park. Obviously, we don't know, nor do we need to know potential users for this particular division. However, there's no intent to look for additional rezoning for individual lots as we move forward?
No, there's been no mention to staff about rezoning any of these parcels. Their zone business park. This land division does conform with all of the underlying zoning requirements.
We do have the applicant in the audience, so counsel, if you'd like to ask a question of the applicant, please let me know. Alderman Kavieski?
One other question. With it being divided into three, potentially use of infrastructure might be adjusted? Number of bathrooms, number of whatever associated with that type of development. Is there any review of that? Number of recs, any of that?
No, we don't know the users at this time and the operations, but that's something we'll review as the individual users come in.
Is there anything you can share, Mr. Neiman, publicly about the potential users? Okay, thank you. Like to entertain a motion? Oh, we already did.
No, we
Oh,
did
no, we
not.
didn't on
So
this, I'm
move,
sorry.
Kavieski.
Second, Altman Cloth.
Any further comments or questions? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Under our next item.
Item 10C on the agenda is a certified survey map for the UW Credit Union dividing one lot into 3 and 1 outlot located at the southeast corner of Summit Avenue and Paps Farms Boulevard. The applicant is UW Credit Union. They would like to divide this lot for the purchase of it. It would be a 1.6 acre site right at the intersection there. Their intention is not to build right away. They would like to just buy this to hold it, and then eventually, when the timing is right, to do that. In the staff report, I did include the general development plan. This is part of a planned development area. These lots are consistent with the approved plan development for this area. The underlying zoning meets all the requirements, or the lot meets all the requirements. Plan Commission did recommend approval of this certified survey map.
Any questions for Mr. Gallo? What? Alderman Rozak?
So UW is only buying lot 1?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so the request is actually from Paps Farms? No, Stonebridge Capital. That is Paps Farms.
That is Paps Farms.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like to entertain a motion?
So moved, Rozak.
Second, Shellpepper.
Any further discussions, comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Item 10D on the agenda is a conditional use permit for Wisconsin Harley Davidson to allow outdoor recreation commercial located at 1280 Blue Ribbon Drive. We held a public hearing earlier this evening. I gave a brief presentation. No one from the public spoke. The Plan Commission did recommend the conditional use permit as drafted in your packet. I did go through some of those conditions, such as the application is tied to what their plans were. The site plans are all tied to what they provided in their packet. The initially approved activities would allow up to 17 outdoor recreation events. Hours of operation would be up until 10 p.m., no later, except for the one event. The rally weekend can go until 11 p.m. These wouldn't require inspections, noise restrictions about complaints. Parking shall comply with parking operations, traffic management plan, fire protection, fireworks, garbage pickup, etc. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the request, and the applicant is here in the audience to answer any questions as well.
Alderman Shellpepper.
So we know what all the 17 events are going to be. We don't know if they're going to hold all 17, but if they do hold all 17, we know what those 17
We
would
do know
be.
what they all are going to be.
Yeah, and it's something they've been holding these events for 15 years now.
I've been issuing permits for over
Yeah.
15 years.
And there's some kind of contract in place with our emergency services to compensate for the time they put into it.
That-
Police, fire, or no? Or they just do this out of the goodness of their heart, or how does that work? We have a lot of traffic. I mean, we have a lot of people down there monitoring those events, don't we?
They have their own personal security.
Okay, but we have Oconomowoc
but
police out there
we
also.
We are involved in it as well, you're right. I don't know the answer to if we have a contract.
Captain.
You want to come on up? Leslie Smith is here with Wisconsin Harley Davidson.
We actually, during rally, and that's probably about the only, the only time that we actually do a contract with police to have, their, I don't know what their term is. It's like the guys that are in the works to be police officers.
CSOs.
CSOs.
Yeah, okay.
We pay for CSOs to be there during certain timeframes. Other than that, it's all done by our private security team that we have on, that's there 24/7 during that time. Other than that, for all of the other events, it's basically done by our staff. And then we have a local chapter, that's a hog chapter, that has specific road captains that take care of parking and any security issues that we have.
So we don't have any fully sworn officers that are ever monitoring or
Only
staffing
during
these?
rally. Only during rally do they take certain areas, so they take Highway 67 to make sure that people are crossing, because we have a lot of people that will go into the parking lot at the hospital
Right,
and walk across.
that's what I'm thinking of.
So we have the
Yeah,
COs,
okay.
those are stationed on 67, and then on DR out of the circle, they're also stationed there just to make sure that people are getting out safely, especially at night. During the day, we tend to have more of our volunteers, road captains, groups that work with a lot of the riders, so they know how to get them in and out of situations. And then that's also the plan of changing the route. We don't have people coming on 67 onto Blue Ribbon Drive. We cut that out so that they go to the light on DR, so then it's not a issue of going into that turn lane, causing backups on traffic. It worked really well last year to cut that out and have them go to a light and have it more controlled. So we
Captain
do
Tim.
actually have hired.
Captain Tim, is there anything that needs to be added, any other information for council other than what was described? Okay. Alderman Kavieski?
I think, but maybe you can confirm. I think the question is about staff time and being compensated for staff time associated with the proper operation.
Yeah.
So the CSOs are being charged back to you.
Yes.
And if there's any dedicated officer time associated with that, that gets charged
We
back to
get
the-
billed for
as
it,
well.
and then we
Yep.
just make sure that it gets paid.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Great.
okay.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
clarification. Alderman Ellis?
I do have another question for you. In reference to the EMT, are they on site at the time of the rallies and things on those lines?
Yes, we have worked with EMT to have an actual rig on site during our hours of operation.
And who's paying for that?
I think we are, yeah, I think we get a bill for that too. There's a lot of bills. Yeah. We
Thank
make
you.
sure that it's proper. I mean, that was one of the things that probably wasn't done in years past, and we wanted to make sure that safety was our number one thing, especially the larger we get and the more people see us and want to come out to our events. We just need to make sure that it's properly, set up for those. We've never had any incidents, so, it's, I don't want any to ride,
Chief
but-
Bowen, any other comments that you want to share, anything else? Okay, thank you. Alderman Mulder?
Yeah, thanks for bringing this forward to us. And I reviewed this on Plan Commission, and it's really thorough, and it makes it, really easy for us to understand what your operations are. You've done a really good job, I think, of crossing all the Ts that we want to see. And I think that that the size of the events that you put on, and for one night, all of the work you go through just for a bike night. And what that means to our economy here to bring people in from across really the U.S. as they're making their way to the Harley Museum or for what, or just for your events. You know, so thanks for all the hard work that went into this preparation.
And I would echo that too. It's the level of detail that you put for these
Unbelievable.
is well appreciated, gives us a lot of confidence too.
Good. Awesome.
Alderman
Thank you.
Rozak.
Yeah, it's not really a question for you, Leslie, but yeah, the events are great, obviously great for the community. These questions are more for Jason, real quick, if you can.
Thank you, Leslie.
What was the process prior to this? They would come for their annual CUP for all the events every year? So if they changed or modified them, they could do that, and then you would review that, correct?
Right, it was a temporary use permit for special event celebration it fell under.
Okay.
And I was issuing permits. Sometimes we would bundle about 10 of them in one permit, and then they would come back always with the rally because the details weren't there. And then there would be like one or two other events that they would come back for. So it was kind of a strain on staff to be continually issuing permits. This will be under one blanket approval for all their events.
So, but we're not going to do this every year, are we?
Nope, this is a conditional use.
So once we do the conditional use essentially into perpetuity, if they violate any terms, unlike other CUPs, we can just not grant them the next time around, right? Or temporary use, we just don't grant them if
We
they're
can
not
revoke
complying.
the conditional use if they violate any of this, right?
But in order to revoke the conditional use, it has to come back before the council, correct? Yep.
Correct.
So that's a difference between that and the temporary permit, which is if they're violating conditions for whatever reason, serving too much, whatever, anything weird that happens, you can just say, yeah, we're not going to grant those this next time, or we're going to limit the amount moving forward. So once we grant the CUP into one time, essentially into perpetuity, it has to come back to us with major issues. So it creates a little bit, in my head, more difficulty in trying to enforce you know, the requirements of these events. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I know it's freeing up staff time for you, but
I
is
prefer
that worth it?
this method because it should come to before the councilman if there is an issue and then we're going to revoke a permit. I don't think it should come on staff's shoulders to be revoking permits. I think it should become before this body. That's a
So have
pretty
you
big
ever,
deal.
yeah, that's fair. Have you ever revoked a temporary use permit for any of their events? Or pulled one the next month because they were in violation of previous issue, you know, the last month or something?
There was one event that I did not grant. It was due to a parking issue, and I don't recall what the specifics were, but I think Pabst Farms did not want parking there. It was because of the golfing for the US Open was using the lot, and we decided it was in the best interest not to grant the event.
So doing it the way we're doing it, while problems come back before it, it also reduces our flexibility to maybe an event or two that, you know, we now have another large operator, essentially next door, Dock Hounds, that are also going to be doing events. And what happens when their events conflict with these events? One of the other issues I've seen down there when I've driven down during the events is huge portions of the road, I think, are reduced from like 2 or 3 lanes down to 1 lane.
That's only for the one rally.
The rally event?
Yeah.
So how does that affect the Dock Hounds, and how does that affect Sentry Equipment and all the other manufacturers there in the hospital? And, you know, so I think this reduces our flexibility. That's my concern. It's not really a concern with their events or how they've done them. I think overall they're fine. I think it reduces our flexibility to kind of move lightly on events, but I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I'm speaking my mind on whether or not that reduces our flexibility.
I'm going to put 2 cents in here. One thing that I like is that they've had a history for a long period of time of doing it really well. And this is, I think, one exception where losing some of that flexibility is probably okay. But I fully appreciate what you said, Alderman Rozak, because what we want to do is hold everybody accountable. That's what's good for the community. But I'm okay with, I'm comfortable with this because of the history. And that's, you know, it's a testament to your company and your group, and I applaud that.
One other follow-up question I had was, is there any loss of revenue for us because they're not doing additional CUPs every year? Or, I'm sorry, temporary use? Do we lose that revenue? We're still doing the inspections, but we're losing the revenue on the temporary use permits.
Right, well, I'd bill back my time like I would
Oh, you
with
would, okay.
anything, and, you know, it's still my time is not gonna be there, so it's a hard question to answer, you know? I could be spending my time doing a different application, so.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Going off of something that Rosick said, and I guess this is more of a question for, is it Lori?
Leslie?
Or Leslie, I apologize. What is your relationship like with the dock hounds in terms of scheduling?
And we do have the dock hounds here. So,
Oh, good. You guys sitting next to each
if
other,
we
that would be
could,
more encouraging. No.
Holding
Um,
hands.
I'm working really closely with Trish, who is their GM, and sharing what our schedule is. And we already worked with them, making sure that they weren't there during our bigger, like, rally. That's a big deal that takes up. And we also, to point out, like Ace and Century, we work really closely with everyone that is in that circle to work with them to make sure that their function of their business is not affected by our events. So same goes with dock hounds. We're working very closely with making sure that our larger events, there's no disconnect. Like, they know my schedule, I know their schedule, so that I can work around it and they can work around ours. I mean, we asked with Rally specifically because we knew that's something that would affect their parking lot, and it actually gave us the advantage of using the parking lot. But we do the same thing with all of the businesses in the circle, is what do you need from us to make it so that we don't affect you and your business? So it's one of those things, like, we've always made sure that we have those conversations. Those conversations are happening already and leading up to everything, you know, throughout the summer. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to entertain a motion. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
What if there's
Alderman
another
Shellpepper?
golfing event, I mean, at Erin Hills, and we need to use that sort of parking lot, or, you know, that wants to be used again? How can we say, hey, Harley, we need you to hold off on this event, if we give them the CUP for 17 guaranteed events?
Well, part of the issue was this area that the dock hounds now own was being
Yeah.
impacted, and that's no longer
True.
sold for.
Yeah.
I mean, if they want to use the parking lot at the dock hounds for parking, that's fine.
Yeah. But there's still some open field out there, isn't there?
That's the land.
That's the land we just divided.
Yeah, so that's
Added
it.
that up.
That's
So
the
I
only
th-
one.
I think this,
Okay.
that the parking is going to be probably not
That won't be something that'll come back every
happening
day.
anymore.
I think it'll be a big asset to get it off some of the other roads. Alderman Rozak.
One other, if I brought my, this is just, I was just thinking about this. If I wanted to do a party at Fowler Lake, the park, and I need to get a permit for that, right?
I believe you have to
Yeah, I
rent
get
this.
some type of temporary use permit. I do like a 50th anniversary party or something, right, for my mom.
That goes through Park and Recs.
A Park and Rec, whoever. Could I get that into perpetuity every year on Friday at, 3 o'clock?
It's
Probably
not
not.
private property.
Yeah, this is private property.
It wouldn't be a zoning issue.
Fair point. All right, thanks.
I'd like to entertain a motion.
So move, Kavieski.
Second, Douglas.
Any further questions, comments from council? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rosick.
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Aye.
On to new business. Mr. Gallo.
Yes, item 11A is consider an act on a request from the Lake Country Dock Hounds to approve various events in 2022 at the 1011 Blue Ribbon Circle North. And I'll give you a little background. It was 2 years ago this month that we approved a conditional use permit for outdoor recreation for the Dock Hounds. At that time, we called it Blue Ribbon Baseball. And there was conditions established in their conditional use that said, if you do indoor events you can do it, then you don't need to come back to the city. If you do a parking lot event, you might need to get a temporary use permit. If you do outdoor athletic events in the stadium, that's fine. You can do that. That's what the stadium's for, and you granted that approval. If you do an outdoor non-athletic event, we're talking a concert or a festival of some sort, if it's inside the stadium or in the parking lot that draws over 1,500 people or uses the sound system that's not there, that brings in speakers, they have to come back to this body. And that was one of your conditions. So they're here tonight asking, hey, we want to do some events in this calendar year, 2022, up to 5. We don't know what they are because we haven't booked them yet because it's a chicken and the egg. We need your approval in order to say yes. So they can't tell you what those are. They can tell you with one of them, and they made it public. They said a mac and cheese festival in September. It's going to be bringing in over 1,500 people. They sell tickets. It's a big deal. But these are the types of things. It's a non-athletic festival, food festival. And they would like your permission so they can start to book these events and have some assurities that that you're going to approve it. They're asking for 5. Let's try 5 events in 2022. And they're here tonight to talk to you about it, but they submitted a letter of a request up to, and they stated September 24th. They locked in a mac and cheese festival. They wanted to, I said, can you give us some type of example of what that would be looking like? And they said, yeah. The other ones, maybe some type of a concert, country concert in the stadium. But again, I don't think they've, at least my knowledge is they haven't booked anybody yet, so they're asking for 5 events from the council. And they're here to answer any questions.
So if one of you are willing to come up to the podium, share us kind of your thought process, and then be available. Hi, Sunny, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And open it up for questions for council. What are your thoughts, Mr. Bowen?
Well, like Jason said, we'd like to have some concerts. All of our events would happen inside the bowl, so there wouldn't be anything on the parking lot that would have people out there hanging out. We have no tailgating. We're not allowing anybody in the parking lot. So all of our events are going to be inside the bowl. There would be a stage by the pitcher's mound, and we would fill first base and just move on until we hit a capacity. And, with some people on the field, it could be up to 3,000 people maximum, give or take. We have a couple country acts that we're looking at, but, it's a world that we've never been in. We're trying to understand it, and we're working with Leslie to make sure none of our events would happen on their events, knowing parking is an issue, so we're just trying to be mindful of that. We want to adhere to everything in the CUP with security, traffic patterns. I don't think we're looking to try to sneak anything underneath the rug here. We want to make sure we're transparent, do this the right way. One date we're looking at is July 30th. The next would be August 15th or 16th, so there's a smaller gap in between. So that's why we're here, is to say, okay, can we try these 5 events? And after the first one, let's analyze it, assess it, see what we shouldn't do, what we should do, what we need to do, and just answer any questions, if they need to be answered.
Alderman Douglas.
She said it could be up to 3,000 people. What's your current capacity for a game?
Between 25 and 3,000. We have a berm, and depending on how many people sit on the berm is the excess people.
So you're not really looking more than what you currently could have for any.
No, unless you have a bigger show that you would be able to have people on the infield, pit seating, they call it in concerts, right? Pit. So then that would maybe go up to 4,000 max, give or take.
Okay.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
And going up to the 4,000, I mean, you feel comfortable that you have enough parking for that?
Well, like Leslie said, we're working with Harley Davidson on excess parking. We're working with Fleet Farm for additional parking. So we also work with John Sutner at Cornerstone. He has a bus, and then the gentleman that owns Vino also has a shuttle, a bus. So we're working on different ways to help out with parking.
Thank you.
Can,
Alderman Rozak?
I actually have a couple more questions for Jason on what exactly we're approving. So I don't have any questions for you, just Jason.
Yeah.
If he can come back up. We're approving events 4 or 5, is that like 5 events in the 4 or 5 category?
Right, I put together a spreadsheet. I think
Yeah.
that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of get a handle on this and be on the same page, so I shared this with the applicants. So it's really, these fall under, I guess, yeah, categories 4 and 5. Category 4 is non-athletic events. That'd be like the Mac and Cheese Festival.
Okay.
And then the outdoor concerts, we talked about potentially some country acts that would come. So it'd be 5 events that, per the conditional use permit, have to be approved by the Common Council. And these things take a long time to book in advance. You know, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work, and they just want your approvals. They can't come forward and say, we have X performer coming here. We don't know who that is.
So, I mean, the way I'm reading this is we're giving, unlike what we did with what we just did with Harley Davidson, where they have a 17-year history of here's the events we do, here's all the outlines of the events, here's everything for these events, you know the dates, you know what we're doing, it's the bike run, it's the rally. This is just kind of a blank check for whatever they want to do in category 4 or 5 times this year. With 4,000 people, 1,500 people, 2,000 people. I don't, you know, we cut these deals with the developers and we create a CUP, and then, you know, as soon as things start going, we just kind of change the rules. And I'm not for this. I feel like this is a blank check. If they're going to book a large, massive concert with 4,000 people, especially for the folks that live out in my area, that, you know, we want to have some ability to control that moving forward. I feel like, again, we're kind of giving away our ability to control these events. That's why we wrote the CUP the way we did originally, was to have some ability to say, hey, this last 2 events were terrible. Terrible traffic issues, 50 noise complaints, you got to fix it. And we're just going to give that away for 5 events with no control.
Alderman Kavieski?
So is there a way that this can be structured to address those concerns and from the residents and address the structure in which a lot of time was spent to address those concerns? So
yeah, we did it the first time around in the original CUP that we drafted and spent probably 20 hours drafting and debating and going back, I think, several times, including my time, city attorney time, to draft the CUP so that we could address these issues. And all they got to do, like any other entity, is come and get a CUP for that event. Or, I'm sorry, temporary use, temporary use.
And unless it's over 1,500, then they need council approval.
Correct.
That's why they're here.
That's why they're here.
that's what, right.
Right, because they have,
But we can
they're
approve.
asking for a blank check for
But what
5
you're
events
saying is
without
there's
regard
not
to,
enough specificity with
without regard to
to
what the event is, how
That's
many
what
people
you're
are going to be here, because they're just
Right.
saying it's going to be more than 1,500.
We know about the mac and cheese. We'll probably
I'd
all
approve
be
that
there.
right now.
Right, let's approve the mac and cheese. Good to go.
For mac and cheese.
Yeah.
We did hash this out. I'm concerned that you're saying that it's a blank check. 2 years ago, we approved this, and we hashed all this out. We set a time frame up to 11 o'clock. We talked about 1,500 people has to come before the council. We created these parameters. They knew what they were getting into. They came up and said, this is going to be, we need additional revenue for this to offset this, so we would like to have events.
Right.
We granted them a conditional use for outdoor recreation. I think, you know, by giving them outdoor recreation CUP, and then you also said if the events meet these criteria, then you have to come back before the council. I think 5 is a reasonable number. I don't know. You know, I wish I had more information to provide to you other than the Mac and Cheese Festival and the Country Act, but that's about it. These need to be booked months in advance, so they need to get your approvals.
Alderman Ellis? What concerns me is, I remember this I remember this a few years back. What concerns me is the blank check. What concerns me is the fact that we're going to approve, if we approve or we don't approve, 5 concerts in a sense. We don't know what they're going to be. Whereas in the original we stated that if it was over 1,500 individuals, that they had to come back to get a temporary permit of some sort. And we're just being true to our word. That's it. We already know of one, and that is the mac and cheese. So we may or may not approve that, but the other four, when that happens, they have to come back or get some sort of a temporary permit to be able to do that. That's what we wrote originally. That's what we approved originally. That's what they approved with us. So I don't understand why we have to give them 5. You know, it's not like Harley Davidson, where Harley Davidson said, these are the rallies that we're going to have. We've got a history, 15, 16, 17 years. Very little as far as problems with the police and things along those lines. So I don't understand why we're having this conversation. The bottom line here is this is what we wrote originally, and I don't think we're going to we're not going to give out a blank check. I could be wrong. That's just my own thoughts.
Alderman Mulder?
So I wasn't on council at the time, but those are the meetings leading up to council where I was here till midnight with you guys. So I feel like I have the same PTSD that you do. If I'm reading and remembering correctly in what it says here, up to 1,500, they have a blank check already.
Right.
They can
Right.
do whatever they want.
Yes.
As long as they use the speaker system that's there.
Right.
And I can appreciate the difficulty of trying to arrange this without knowing you can do it, because you can't book the act until you know you can book the act, and the speed at which we can approve that isn't probably consistent with what you're trying to do, especially this first year. Because an act that's going to draw 4,000 people has probably a fairly tight schedule, I imagine, or you're trying to fit it into a window that is going to coordinate with Harley. So, I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces for you as well. So I appreciate the difficulty of, especially year one, where we don't have any track record. It's a District 3 is the one that's going to hear the music or have the problems most closely. Is there a way that we could say 3 at this point, so that they can move forward with booking some things and getting them on? If 5 is too much for your appetite, we do have there is risk to them if they screw it up, right? We can revoke the whole CUP if it goes really badly. I would imagine there'll be some hiccups the first time. It's the first time they're doing it, right? They can learn from Harley. Our services know how to handle a large event in that part of town, so they can work with police and fire to have the right equipment on and the right staff on hand to handle it. So I hate to limit this first year for them. There's a lot of community excitement. I know these will be well attended, just like the Harley events are. So if there's if you could compromise to 3 in the first period, I don't know. I think that saying that we won't give a blank check, maybe it's just a smaller check, because I do think that we have some leverage downstream that if they are truly in violation several times in a row, we're going to look at that whole CUP, which completely kind of torpedoes part of their whole business plan. So,
One thing to think about is think about what you're concerned about in their categories. You have category 4 and category 5 in front of you. Think about what you're concerned about and try to address that. I think it's really important for a startup company to have opportunities, but then we want to make sure if it goes well. So the term blank check is obnoxious. I hate that term because it has different connotations to different people. I don't think we're giving them a blank check at all. What we're doing is holding them accountable on the different events. You have to decide, do you want to do that because it's over 1,500 or not? And if you do you want to change what types of events? Because we really only know about one that's more detailed. So I have several aldermen wanted to talk. So Alderman Kavieski, and then Alderman Spiegelberg, and then back over. Okay. So Alderman Kavieski.
I appreciate the acknowledgement of the sensitivity of the bundle, right? I think one of the concerns as this was originally drafted was, if you got 5 events and you have fireworks after each one of them, and you have acoustics that are gonna be outstanding, but maybe they bounce a little bit and there's residential concern, and that was a big part of the discussion. So maybe, and comparatively to Harley Davidson, because they have such a long period of time in history, they have a very well-developed and presented plan of operation, right? Which alleviates a lot of question, not only to us as council, but to the community. They know exactly what's going on. You guys don't know yet because you don't know exactly who's gonna be where and how that's gonna work. So could this be structured in such a way that a plan of operation for each one of those, as those opportunities come up, gets submitted as part of just moving forward? The overall approval is there, but staff and, I don't know if it's this body or not, has a chance to say, hey, you know, the mac and cheese is pretty easy, right? You're not gonna celebrate the end of mac and cheese with fireworks, maybe. But if you have 4 concerts and 3 of them wanna end in fireworks, maybe we say, hey, that's cool, but maybe only 1.
I think fireworks is prohibited per their CUP.
Yeah,
So,
I
but I know you're
yeah,
just using that as an
yeah,
example.
just an example. And again, you stay viable and you stay relevant based on the quality of events that you do and the number of events in which you are able to confirm and put in place. And you're right, this year, first year, everybody's super excited. I think it's gonna be fantastic. And I think you've proven to go above and beyond in what you've provided to the community and engaging with the community. We just need to make sure that if we have some accountability in the structure. So is there a way that a plan of operation can be attached to the final yes and still bundling the 5 events?
As this board was talking, you know, I wrote down, staff can work with them on getting a plan of operations. We can share that with the council in the weekly memo to you. I also want to I wrote down, this is not this is an annual permit. This is not a in perpetuity type thing. This is annually. So we could see how the first year goes. We can work on getting plan of operations. We can have communications with the council, but they're asking for your consideration tonight for the events.
I think it's important, they've got to start somewhere. How can we help them start somewhere without feeling like we're giving it all away? And so, but you also have to come back to the comments that Alderman Rozak made. The initial CUP was set up for a certain group of events a certain way, and it's come forth this way. So also think of that, because there's components of that. Alderman Spiegelberg, you've been waiting patiently.
But a lot of people have already said what I was going to say, and one of them was, I don't like that term blank check either, because they're asking for 5 events for 2022, not asking for something into perpetuity. How do we ever see if they can be successful and be good neighbors and pull off these great events if we never give them a chance? And I think I'd be curious to know also how many large events like that Harley Davidson had their first year in operation, which was probably more than 5.
Well, the other approach too is if you decide and say, here are the types of events, because they can't classify them, and then you ask for example, hey, we would like you to come back after these events, come and talk with us in council and say, how did it go? What did we learn? Because they're going to be good and bad anytime you do these things the first time. And then you can all experience that to a degree. What I'm hearing or sensing is that people are worried about the concerts. That's my sense, and how that might impact the community, because in the initial CUP, concerts were discussed, but it wasn't going to be a big deal because it was going to be inside using the internal speaker system, and there weren't going to be more than 1,500 people. So I think maybe part of the issue is people's perception of concerts, but how do we know if we don't try? Or what does council want to do? Where do you want to take it from here? This is up to you. And Alderman, he said no and pushed off to you.
One thing that you said that was a little concerning in regards to parking was working with John and Brian with the busing.
Mm-hmm.
So would that mean that you would put overflow parking in downtown Oconomowoc?
No. If people wanted to go to the event that we're hosting, they can go to Cornerstone and get a ride to the concert and then get a ride back on their shuttle.
Okay,
So
so
we're
then
not
you're
pushing
putting,
them
but then they're parking downtown.
if that's where they want to park and get on the shuttle. I mean, they could take a cab and park somewhere downtown. You know, it's just another option for people.
Do we know approximately how much we can park between Harley, Dock Hounds, Fleet Farm?
We have over 1,100, close to 1,100 spots. So if you've got two to a car, you're 24, 2,500 just on our site alone.
I mean, I don't want to take business away from John or Brian.
Right.
I just think of what downtown looks like on a
Mhm,
weekend
for
in the
sure.
summer.
Yep.
We don't need to create more parking down there, well, we need to create more parking spaces, you know what I'm saying? But we don't need to, attract more people
Understand,
down there
yeah.
that,
I'm trying to put this into perspective, just, and Alderman Rozak, I understand, I totally understand your concerns. Harley's been having concerts, I don't know if they're at all 17 of your events, but there's bands there, multiple bands every event. And we're just asking for up to 5 events, actually 4 with the mac and cheese not being music, but in a controlled environment where we know if we have a sellout at a baseball game, we know how to control the people that are coming and going in our stadium for security, for parking, for noise. So we understand that. If we have a concert, a 4,000 maximum capacity venue, you're not getting these concerts that are gonna have 10,000, 20,000 Summerfest people. These are smaller, maybe they're older bands, maybe they're up-and-coming music acts. It's not something that the perception of a large music act that's gonna cause riffraff and trouble and stuff that goes with big concert events. So I'm just trying to be a steward of the neighborhood with Harley, work together. Our investment is growing every day. We're not gonna take a risk to disappoint the community, disappoint the council. That would hurt our business plan, that would hurt all of us. So I think we're here to work with you and not fight something that may have a perception that isn't accurate.
Alderman Rozak.
I appreciate that. Here's my concern. We spent hours and hours hashing out the details. I ultimately voted in favor of the project. I have my constituents that are concerned, and that's why the 4 and 5 that is set up the way it is, to address those concerns, so that when you come in with a proposal and a request, I mean, I find it hard to believe that you need the 5 ahead of time because you have to book all these bands like right now, and that there's not some lead up that I mean, I look at most bands are already booked all summer. So you're booking people out far enough that you should have time to come in and ask for the request that we put in and that we hashed out. I also note on this event, it says, no limit on the number of events allowed during the year as long as they comply with these terms that we've already put in and hashed out as a council, 2 years ago. So I don't think this hampers you at all. This is exactly what I was concerned about when I did the approval, was that the deal changes. And to me, the deal's changing. I don't want to affect your business, and I like I said, when I voted for the whole project, I thought we put together a nice package that met all the issues. We talked about, remember the liquor license thing, like how long could you serve liquor, blah, blah, blah. People didn't care, we ended up going later. I got some things I wanted in the things, some things I didn't, and I ultimately voted for it. But now we're back here again saying, we'll just approve for 5 and see what happens. And that wasn't the deal that was cut, and I think we're going back on that deal.
What I'd recommend at this point is let's take a 5-minute recess and bathroom break. We've been sitting here since 6 o'clock, and we'll come back here at 9:35.
I need to.
Come up?
Kind of a legal question, I guess.
Oh, perfect, go ahead.
Hey, Stan.
Hi.
So if this were to move forward and stay with the number of 5, and there's a contingency associated with the plan of operation submitted to the city staff for review prior to the event, that way the plan of operation can address any of those concerns based on event by event. So tweaking can occur and mitigation could be put in place in that plan of operation. How would that motion need to look, or how would that change the structure of what's in front of us?
Well, first of all, I think staff would want to have a very clear picture of what you would want in a plan of operation. because you give them a blank check and they probably don't want that responsibility. I'm speaking for them.
Yep.
But assuming that you trust their judgment completely, then the motion would be up to 5 events in categories 4 and 5 exceeding 1,500, which is required for the approval of those events under the conditional use permit that you issued, conditioned upon each event being receiving a plan of operation with regard to each event, being reviewed by staff as it relates to each event and approved by staff, with the proviso that in the event staff feels that there were violations of the parameters of any individual event, staff would have the right to terminate all future events.
What he said.
What he said would be what I would recommend us considering. So if you guys are okay, I'd like to make a motion to amend to the verbiage provided by Attorney Riffle.
And I would second that.
No, not,
Motion's been made, it's been seconded, open for discussion. Alderman Spiegelberg.
no, I'd just like to clarify one thing. He said exceeding 1,500, and the CUP says 1,500 and above.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, but I mean, you know.
No, it's, yeah.
You're
it's-
right, you're right.
Yeah, you get it right, yeah.
So what I'm hearing,
More than 1,499.
There you go.
what I'm basically hearing in summary, even though there's a motion in a second, is that your proposal is that the dot counts can have 5 events in the, broken up in those 2 categories. And they're gonna have to work with staff on their operational plan, and they're gonna, in a sense, have to debrief after each event to see how it goes. If at any point, our staff is uncomfortable with something or see a major violation, it could be noise ordinance, it could be any of those, they can shut down all the future events.
Right.
And then the DOCOMs would have to agree to that, because some of these events are those types of events where they put money down, they put deposits down, and they could lose that money.
That's the motivation to make sure compliance to what was outlined is there, and which is what we don't want to give up
So
in the.
It sounds to me like that is exactly what's already in the CUP.
No,
What's in the CUP right now?
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Absolutely it
We have
is.
to come here and have you approve anything.
If they go over the event numbers and the numbers that we've put in this deal, look, we cut a deal with the people that came out and objected to some of the issues. We worked on a deal, and yeah, you guys can shake your head all you want. You can, but
you're not
look,
stating what's in the.
No, oh, hey,
yeah,
finish your thought.
yeah, I had the
then
floor.
Add
sorry.
yours.
I'm sure.
We gotta have focus here.
We cut a deal to do this deal. We created the framework we created. And now before the events even start, we're already changing the framework. That's not the deal we cut with the residents and the people in my area. That's not what we expected when we approved this project. People came in, they did, and to their credit, they did some sound studies. We did all sorts of cool stuff to make this deal work. And now it's like, yeah, just give us 5. Whether you want to call it a blank check or freedom of action or whatever you want to call it, we're giving them 5 without any ability to do anything further on this for this year. We can't, I mean, we're going to give them the 5.
I think the proposal the motion that's on the floor states that they have to be in compliance, and if there are any problems, they have to be addressed through staff, which is incredibly vague, but it's a point in which you're saying, now, Attorney Riffle, you were gonna jump in and say something?
No,
What
I'm not
was-
saying a word. I just don't agree that
Well, you
the
say,
description of the deal is not what is in the deal. They have a right to come and make an application for events larger than 1,500.
Right.
That is the deal.
that's what they're doing.
But if we want to say no, we have every right to say no because we don't want to do it. We don't want to give it to them.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's right in the agreement.
Right, well, there's kind of 2 different arguments.
Okay, Alderman Shellpepper?
No, go ahead, Matt. You were saying something.
Matt?
So I think those it's a wise amendment. I do think that this year should be seen as an anomaly, that in the future, coming and saying, we want to do 10 events this year, and we'll let you know what they are. Like, until this year will begin the beginning of a track record, but as you next year, I would expect in Q1, early Q2, you come and say, we have 7 events planned, and it's at this concert, this date, and so that we probably vote, probably not individually on every single activity you want, but we can vote on a slate of 5 acts or 7 weekends or whatever it is, because the vagueness of this is uncomfortable, and I think we're trying to help you get your business launched and the excitement of the community, but I do think that this isn't the ongoing way we want to see this conducted.
Alderman Shell Pepper, and then I'll come to.
So if the staff sees a problem with the operation, they can deny future events? Is that what I'm
That's how
understanding?
it was proposed.
That's how it's proposed.
Through Attorney Riffle.
So
and
you're
Nick.
putting the onus of this body's responsibility of approving or denying these events now on to staff members who
Correct.
probably shouldn't be, holding this authority, nor do they want to. So, no, I'm going to vote against the amendment.
Alderman Kowalski.
So the CUP is very specific in regards to compliance of the expectations. Sound through I think it's very detailed, right? That would be the criteria in which staff would have to weigh against. So again, one of the biggest concerns, again, correct me if I'm wrong, was sound. So if there was a issue with sound during concert 1, they would have the opportunity to address it, show staff how they addressed it. If they didn't address it, it could be denied moving forward by staff, because it's not in compliance with what the CUP outlines. It's not arbitrary, we're not giving up authorities associated with that, because based on the CUP, we can't deny an event if they're in compliance with the CUP.
Alderman,
Am I
Attorney.
correct in that?
Yeah.
No.
Attorney Riffle,
No?
go ahead.
Okay.
There's a really simple provision. I'm glad that you let me read it, because it'll be very useful in our analysis here.
Okay.
Paragraph 4, non-athletic events. Non-athletic events for attendees numbering 1,500 or more and/or involving the use of a sound system other than the permanent ballpark sound system, which means if they're going to bring in sound, it could be 10 people, and you would have to invoke this. So those 2 non-athletic events may be permitted only under a temporary use permit submitted to and approved by the City Common Council. So that's why we are here. There's a provision in here that allows them to come and ask you for this. You can say no. You can say yes. I guess you can approve the methodology by which you permit this by giving staff leeway to say yes or no based on a case-by-case basis. And some of you have already suggested that that's not staff's job, that's your job, because of the language that's in the conditional use permit. But it is there, they have a right to be here, we have a right to say yes or no. We don't have to say yes.
So we have a motion and a second. We're still in open discussion. Alderman Shell Pepper.
That's all correct, Stan. But the way that you can read that provision is kind of different. So the way that I think, that I'm interpreting it is each one of those events that's 1,500 or more, you're coming and asking for the approval with specifics versus, 10 in bulk without any, specifics at all. So I think that's kind of where the differences of how you can kind of read and interpret that provision of the CUP comes into the play. So that's how I understand it. One-on-one, one at a time.
Yeah.
Alderman Kowalski. Sorry.
No, sorry.
It's late.
Yeah. One final thing, and then I'm sure this is going to go to vote. I think what they're looking for and what this structure is looking to provide is that when they leave here, they can say, okay, we can book things. We can get the dates. We can secure them. And then the plan of operations developed based on whatever that event is. It still has to come with a plan of operation and everything else, but they can't leave here and say, we can book on these dates out here unless they come back here, which could be 2 weeks from now, could be 4 weeks from now, and by then, that opportunity to book it could be gone.
Can you share what those details are so far right now? That might help. So you said June 30th?
No,
And
July
what's your
30th.
thought process?
Calendar.
So June 30th is?
July
that-
30th,
July 30th, is that a concert or is that
a concert.
a wedding? or
Earmarked for a concert.
Earmarked for a concert? This might help counsel in your decision process.
And again, I don't know if there's more than 1,500 people. I hope there is.
Mhm.
I'm just protecting us if we do have more. I mean,
No,
a
we
lot of people like mac
appreciate
and cheese.
I'll do it the best I can to work through whatever you have left over.
July 30th, August 13th, and September 17th.
So those dates that you've tentatively tried.
The team
would
is away.
work. It would work.
Harley
Those are
doesn't have a
all-
big event.
Yeah, those are all concerts.
Those would be concerts, correct, those 3 dates.
And then one event will be the macaroni and cheese.
Correct.
Blast or
Mhm.
cheese curds, whatever it is. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we're looking at 4 concerts and one,
3 concerts.
3 concerts and 1 mac and cheese.
okay. That, I want to make sure everybody's clear on the request.
So,
Alderman Mulder.
this is, I guess, a question I'll ask it of Alderman Rozak. If they came forward with, and said, you know, we have 3 concerts, we want it on the dates he just provided in the mac and cheese, we now know that level of detail. What additional detail would you want to know in order to feel comfortable voting for or against that slate of events?
Well, the things we outlined in the CUP, yeah, that we agreed to, that they agreed to, that we hashed out, which is there going to be more than 1,500 attendees?
I
They
think they're
create the-
saying in
they-
all cases there
yeah,
would be, that's why they're asking.
They create, well, but also the outside music. You know, are they using things outside of the ballpark? You know, is this also in the, you know, other areas? I mean, that's,
I think they've said everything's
said no.
inside, correct?
okay.
In the field.
There were 2 major issues as we were developing the original CUP. And to your point, it was the music, especially because they did the sound studies for their own internal music stuff. And it's all directed, you know, it was all directed kind of towards the field. It's when you bring in outside music that it fans out. And look, I mean, I think we were real fair in those discussions. We talked about sound studies, we put little stuff around to see how the sound travels. I mean, that's why we established this. And part of that expectation was that as these things develop and they get concerts or they were looking towards to book on dates, that they would come forward with some minimal plan for temporary use for that date, for that concert, with, hey, that we think this is going to be about 3,500 people. We're going to use outside music, and here's the plan, and here's the concert. That what was outlined, and they're asking for a change of that, and I'm against the change. The fact that they gave us a little bit more information now when requested doesn't change my position that that wasn't what we agreed to. And look, I don't think this is not that hard. Everybody has to do these type of things for these type of events in different areas. If they were doing it in downtown Waukesha somewhere, they'd have to go and ask for a temporary use permit. You know, if they were going to rent a ballpark somewhere else and do this, they'd have to ask for a temporary use permit.
So I want to come back to where we are. We have a motion has been made, it's been seconded. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Does the motion want to stay or be retracted? Keep it, okay? So the motion was made by Alderman Kavieski and seconded by Alderman Mulder,
Ellis.
or Ellis, I'm sorry.
Get another point.
Yes.
Alderman Shellpepper makes an excellent point about putting the onus back on the staff. When we were talking about Harley Davidson, the staff specifically said they don't want to be in charge of revoking permits. So I don't know how to craft something better, but I do think that's I do think that's problematic for me in this particular amendment.
Alderman Kavieski.
That's a great point. So I guess because that is a fair thing, if I could ask you a question. So, using Harley as that example, if there was an issue with violation of the CUP, in one of the 17, you would be, as staff, responsible for enforcing and addressing that regardless of revoking, right?
Right, eventually, in order to revoke the CUP, it would have to come back to this body. But, right, I work with applicants on violations before it gets to this body. I'm the one that would send the letter and try to work it out with them.
So, and I believe the way the amendment was crafted was the plan of operations would come to staff, which you would be part of that.
Right.
Review that, you get to give input and ultimate, yeah, I think that works. You had an issue with this, it's addressed, we're good. If it doesn't work again, for whatever reason, there's another, whatever that is, would you feel more comfortable as the primary staff member that the recommendation for revocation or revocation would then come before this body, and it wouldn't solely be based on staff?
Yes.
So he could make the recommendation, has to come to council for approval.
Yeah.
Alderman Douglas?
So what you're saying is essentially just, we're gonna vote on giving the 5, and then he's gonna report to us, and we'd revoke it.
If there's
Exactly
violation,
how it
yeah.
Well,
is
they would
done
let
for
them
everything
run. I
else.
would issue a temporary use permit for event 1. If it goes smooth, then they can have event 2. If something happens in event 3, then we try to work it out. But maybe by the time they get to 5, you know, they have to come to you and maybe you know, if 3, 4 go bad, I would say, I'm not comfortable with this anymore. And then it would bring it back to you guys.
So I would look to rescind the amendment, of which Attorney Riffle helped to outline, and resubmit that amendment with caveat that final revocation would be reviewed and approved or denied by this body based on staff recommendation.
Alderman Ellis, are you good with that? Simplify this.
I'm going to remove my second at this point, and if somebody else would like to second it, you can, and I'll explain to you why. I am very confused. This got really complicated and quickly. Without going into detail, because it's getting late, I'm just going to revoke my second.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion. It's
Don't
been
understand.
seconded. Your motion has been revoked. Your second has been revoked. So I think what we need is a brief summary of exactly what your motion is. I understood it a little while ago, but as time goes by, we want to make sure that we're accurate, and we have to be fair to the dock hounds.
Yep. So
Would you repeat it, please?
the original amendment provided for the 5 events in compliance with the CUP, pending the plan of operation for each one of those events to be submitted to staff, and with the ability for staff to adjust plan of operation to make sure compliance with the CUP is there. And if they didn't do that, they could revoke. Fair point, we don't, and staff doesn't want that authority, that should come here. So the added part is staff would come to this body and say, we've had violation, we recommend no longer supporting that, and maybe that's the 5th event, it's eliminated. So we're not obligated to 5 regardless of operation. We're giving 5 based on compliance.
We're giving 5 based on compliance, but you're also asking a vendor to put a significant financial investment in booking things. And if something happens and this body rejects it, then they're going to be out the cash. That could be good or bad, viewed by whichever party you're looking at. So I'd just like a comment from the dock hounds. Are you, before we go to a vote, are you comfortable with those guidelines? Because if you're not, you know, this isn't going to work. If you understand the guidelines.
I do. I understand them. It's a risk. I mean, the minute we broke ground is a risk. We're not here to have Kid Rock come and have music blaring out to the neighborhood. It's gonna be confined. We have a noise ordinance that we have to stand by. We're gonna do our best and make sure we stand by that. So it's a risk we accept.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further comments? Thank you for your comments, Mr. Bando. Are we clear? Do we have to need any, seeing some unique facial expressions? Alderman Douglas, yours was one, so thank you.
So is this just for 2022 still?
Yes.
Or are we,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay. I guess my other question is, if we were to approve the 5 events just as is, do we have the right to revoke the 5 events within this year still? Or do we have to revoke the entire CUP?
It's not a CUP. Temporary use permit.
So at this point, it'd be so much cleaner just to approve the 5 events, and if one of them, 2 of them go bad, this council can just revoke the other 3, right?
That was part of the motion.
That's the motion. That's the motion.
Correct.
You're not,
No.
why is staff involved? Because staff's gonna report back to us anyways.
Well, so the way it's, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, right now, there's no requirement to submit plan of operation, right? Now, you are gonna have to submit a plan of operation, and that plan of operation is gonna have to address how that event, whatever that event may be, because whatever. And if staff says, hey, that plan of operation didn't quite get you there, you need to tweak. You tweak, and then it's like, it's just not work. The type of event you're looking to do just ain't gonna work, right? Staff can then come to this body and say, I think you should cancel the rest of them. And we could evaluate it at that point. But you'll be able to leave here being able to say, we know, as long as we do our job, we can book the 5 things that we need to book. And we have the authority with staff input to say, I know what you're looking to do, but it's not going well. And ultimately, that's the protection that we want to provide our residents, our citizens, and the authorities that were entrusted in us and what we got crafted.
Everybody must realize there's a huge financial impact if that happens. So 1, the band,
They're okay
2,
with it,
they're
though.
selling all these tickets. And so 3, I'm looking at contingent liability of getting sued and protecting the city of Oconomowoc. Attorney Riffle.
Is a legislative decision, we have immunity.
Okay. Seriously?
And they said they're okay with it, right?
More costly with that.
Right, it's, there's a, yeah, there's a lot of incentive to make sure that doesn't get to this point.
I didn't know we were, okay. That makes me feel better. Alderman Douglas.
Just want to clarify. So it's the approval of 5 events upon approval of a plan of operation by staff, period.
For each event.
For each event.
For each one. And the staff's gonna review to make sure if we have a lot of complaints after any event, staff says, hey, and Jason tries to work with the dock hounds and it becomes difficult, he's gonna say, hey, we're not making any improvement, then his responsibility is to come to council and make the recommendation to revoke everything else. Is that clear? Okay. But so I think are we guys ready to vote?
Yes.
I do want to make one last comment because the one person who's quiet, who's usually not, is Alderman Rozak. And Alderman Rozak's comment of the spirit in which the CUP was written, he's 100% right. I was sitting in the audience when it was written. This is exactly what I thought was going to happen. And so you as a council, we have to take ownership of this, and we have to take ownership of it for the whole community. It's not good or bad, it's what has happened. And that's why CUPs are really important. And I will throw out, I'd love to see at the baseball games, at least at the end of the 8th inning, you stop selling alcohol. That's responsible, yet that's not what's in the CUP. So all those things that were done in the prior council, those have effects on us here as us going forward. So I want to make sure that those are crystal clear to everybody. So we have a motion and a second. I'd like to call roll, please.
All right. Alderman Ellis.
Nay.
Nay, right?
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski,
Aye.
Alderman Douglas,
Aye.
Alderman Rozak,
Nay.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Okay, it did pass.
The motion passes, and I just want to lay it out for the dot-coms. We love you, we love having you in our community, but what I think everybody's concerned about are the concerts. And so if you can be really, really careful in these first few concerts to really make sure you align with the values of what we want in the community. We hope not to see you again, because if we do, it probably is not going to be a good thing, and we want to be supportive and help you be successful.
Yeah, as amended.
Did somebody have a comment? Oh, I'm sorry, no.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on.
I think, and I'm wrong, Attorney Riffle, but that was the amendment, so now do they have to vote on the amended
I
approval, or is
never
that good
heard in the
enough?
I heard it was called an amendment, but to my
It's actually a
recollection, it
motion.
was the only motion
Okay.
that was
It
made.
was a motion
Just want to
by-
make sure.
Yeah, we just want to make sure.
It was a motion
Okay.
by Alderman Kavieski.
Okay.
It wasn't truly an amendment. The amendment was additional comments onto that, so.
Just
Okay.
verifying. Don't want to do this wrong.
Okay, let's move on to our next item.
Okay.
Consider act on resolution 22-30R3034 denying claim for excessive assessment, Mills Fleet Farm.
It's been like 2 hours since you've been up, were up there last time?
You know how long it's been? I have to read this off my phone because my computer died. Anyway, this is a procedural thing with the excessive assessment claim. This comes from Mills Fleet Farm. They have put forward a claim. It goes to our insurance company. They make a recommendation to deny. It's part of the process. We deny, they get a notice. Within 90 days, they have 90 days to file a claim in court. So generally, when there's a waiver like this, when it's a big company like this, they do a waiver, they file a claim, and then we go from there. So right now, they're claiming their assessment is for $37,228,000. They're claiming it's worth $8 million. I don't have the number, 8 million something here.
Good lawyering.
Yeah, because it's too tiny, I can't read it. So just to give you a little context, though, so in 2020, they were assessed at $30,400,000. Their fair market value, the state's equalized value, was $36,600,000. So this year, after the assessment, they're at $37,000, and their fair market value is also at $37,000. So the attorneys will take it from here, and once the claim gets filed, you'll get a notice that the claim's filed, and then this takes quite a long time, actually, in court before it's heard.
Wonderful.
So I'd
I
like to
need a
entertain a
resolution
motion.
motion to deny.
You got $50,000 worth of insurance coverage per year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
We've heard that already.
Offense.
yeah, per claim, yeah.
Claim.
For claim.
Yeah, not aggregate.
Okay.
Alderman Kavieski.
Clear on this, the yea vote, which I believe is the right vote, allows for engagement with legal.
Target last year.
No, it denies
Both.
the
It
claim,
denies
which
the claim.
starts the shot clock on them. They
on
have
the-
to file their lawsuit.
If they want to
within
file
90 days.
license. Mhm. They have 90 days to file.
That would be the domino, though.
Yep. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So
So-
move.
So, second, Ellis?
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Douglas.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
On to election of council president.
Oh, boy.
Ms. Conan, would you put that
Yes,
together?
thank you. So at your stations, there are 3 packets. The first one, they should still be in this order unless you've moved them. At the very bottom, you'll see that it says for council president. The next one is for council vice president, and the next one is for the representative to plan commission. So what we would be, what council would do at this time would be make nominations for council president. So a nomination, so that would be basically a motion, and then we need a second. And then once all the nominations are made, then council votes on their sheet of paper, and you should write your name, just your last name or your initials for your, like KE or whatever. So I know, but then I'll tally them up, and then whoever has the most votes will be the council president. And then we'll do the same thing for vice president. And then I've got the voting here, but I believe last year we actually just made a motion and a second for the representative to Plan Commission. We didn't do the voting.
And before we get started, just hats off to Alderman Spiegelberg, Alderman Rozak, and Alderman Mulder, who filled those roles this past year. Thank you very much. You guys did a great job.
So we will entertain motions now for council president.
I'll move for Alderman Rozak
I'll second that.
to be council president.
Any other nominations? I will ask once more, any other nominations? Okay, I think we can vote on that with the single nomination made.
You can have a voice vote on that.
Right. I don't know if I should
You
call
can
it.
go
or-
ahead and call it,
Okay,
'cause I'm not
so
the-
we have a motion and a second to appoint Council President Matt Rosick. So I would take all those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that passed. All right, now for Council Vice President, we'll take nominations for Council Vice President.
I'll move for Alderman Mulder to be council vice president.
I'll second that.
I'll move for Alderman Kavieski as council vice president.
Second.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay, so you do have the slips. If you would write the name of either Mulder or Kavieski to be council vice president, and then pass those to your left or right, down to me.
Okay. Oh, okay. Does Diane know? I don't think I break it. Don't they revote?
Both of yours?
No, they keep voting. They just keep voting, yeah. If you wouldn't mind thank you, passing them. So as I open each one in no particular order, I am going to just read the name and tally. Mulder? 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 Kavieski? Kavieski? Mulder? Mulder. And so Alderman Mulder is our council, and the last one was Kavieski. He will be our appointed council vice president, and so I will ask for all those in favor, say aye.
We've already voted.
We already voted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Slips. I'm not, so anyway,
5-3.
yes, we're all done there. So now the next is a plan commission representative, so we'll take nominations.
I'd like to move Kevin Ellis to be planning commission.
Second. Oh,
Okay?
Jumping over themselves.
yes, second.
I'd like to nominate Matt Mulder. I think Kevin would do an awesome job, but I like some continuity. Matt has done an excellent job the last year, and I think to bring that continuity again for at least another year would be great, so.
Yeah, we need a second.
Second.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay, so if you wouldn't mind writing the names, either Ellis or Mulder for Plan Commission Representative, and pass those down, please. See the voting. Thank you. Again, I'm just reading them all mixed up. And this will be the vote. Ellis? 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 Mulder? Ellis. So Ellis?
You lose some, brother.
Good job.
Mulder.
Mulder voted for Ellis.
You win, Kevin, you win.
Congrats.
Ellis, you
Kevin,
are the
congrats.
council representative to the Plan Commission.
You do a great job.
All right, so we're done with that.
Good. On to mayoral appointments to the council committees. One of the things that we've noticed is that it's really been, last couple of years, it's been hard to get committee meetings together. So we're going to try a lot more proactive approaches to that. And this will help you in all your committee structures. One that we'll implemented as of now is that all meetings and all kind of special events like ribbon cuttings or things that we can all go to as all council members are going to be sent to each of you via Outlook invite to your email. That way they're there right away. That was actually a recommendation of Alderman Rozak, which makes a lot of sense because it's hard to be able to be proactive when all of a sudden you find a meeting and you're supposed to be there in 4 days and you have either a family event or business event.
What was my good recommendation? Excellent.
Outlook
Oh.
calendar invites. Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
We're also going to find, because we're going to have some challenging things coming ahead, so we're going to have some committee workshops, and we'll find out shortly, we're trying to be more proactive with the budget, so you can also schedule that, and you'll be seeing that here shortly. But I think those things will come into play, so I have a handout for everybody with all the areas. What I'm going to do is read them off so that you guys hear what's going on, and also for the public record. So protection and welfare, chair will be Shell Pepper, Ellis will be secretary, member will be Douglas. Public Works, chair is Kavieski, secretary is Ellis, Mulder is member. Finance, chair is Mulder, secretary is Shell Pepper, and member is Spiegelberg. Utility, you have chair is Rozak, secretary is Mulder, and member is Ellis. Personnel, chair is Spiegelberg, member is Shell Pepper, and secretary is Douglas. Library is Altman Cloth. Park and Rec and Forestry is Altman Cloth and Rozak. CDA is Kavieski and Magnus. Police Commission is Douglas. Technology is chair is Spiegelberg, secretary Kavieski, and Altman Cloth. And then tourism is Rozak. So those are the core components. Your comptroller will be Alderman Spiegelberg to keep that level of consistency. Paps Farms recommending sewer district, or the stormwater, Mark Fry and Dave Stoser. WPPI will stay with Joe Picard, with the backup being Mark Fry, and our emergency management director, Brad Bowen. So I have all of these printed out, so you have them and you can look at them moving forward. I just want to give you kind of a heads up. A few of the committees are going to have some workshops to get caught up to speed on a few things. And so we'll work with the chairman of each of those committees and with the department head and try to get a few of those into the queue fairly quickly. So I think we have a financially challenging year this year with the rising costs and challenges we have with labor. You're all aware of that here within the city staff, and those things are going to be in front of you. What I want us to do is try to get ahead of all that stuff before we actually start working on the budget, because this is that pre-budget work that will help us a great deal down the road. So thank you all. That's kind of a conclusion, and you have a copy, and I'll send you an electronic one.
Yes, thank you. I do have one thing. The appointment of the emergency government director needs council confirmation. All the rest do not. Those are mayor's appointments, but just this one position. So I would need a motion to confirm the appointment of Brad Bowen as the emergency government director, and a
So
second.
moved.
I'm sorry, who said so moved?
Ovieski?
Okay. I think,
Second, Shell Pepper.
yeah.
Any further discussion on that? I'm sorry, I was not aware
That's,
of that.
yeah, because we had them all together, so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed?
Okay.
And the motion
Thank you.
carries. Thank you.
Now we go down here.
Okay, moving on. Those appointments all take care of items 17 and 18. We'll move on to staff reports. Staff reports, spring election, Ms. Conan.
Yeah, I'm going to go up to the podium. If you don't
Great,
mind.
thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to try and brief this. I probably have a little bit more notes, but I'll try and make it a little briefer, and then if you have questions. I'm going to provide an update on the April 5th election, not really the results, but the election itself. Probably everybody knows that the results took into the early morning. So I'm going to kind of give you some of the variables on how that happened and what I'm looking at in the future. So every election has variables that present different types of challenges, and April 5th was no exception, right? So the election took longer to close down, and it's mainly due to 4 different variables. The first was the non-use of the election or the city drop box. Voters were not allowed to put their ballots in there. They either had to mail them or hand deliver them to the clerk's office. This factored in on election day because the clerk, couldn't be at 4 polls at once, and a lot of voters, either themselves or a representative, bring their ballot to the poll on election day for a variety of reasons. I had to put some procedures in place that would allow the chief inspector to accept that ballot. But it also, we usually get a few people who bring ballots to City Hall on election day, and then I have to run them out to the polls. We had many, many more bringing them in. So I was running multiple times throughout the day, and when even be on the road, I'd get phone calls from my staff saying, "Are you passing City Hall? I've got another one for this district." So that, not that that adds like hundreds of ballots, but it does add more workload for us at City Hall and then at the polls when we bring them in like that and when people drop them off. The second variable is new poll workers. So an average election, we use 28 poll workers, 7 at each poll. For April, we used 21 new poll workers and 7 experienced poll workers. That meant that I had 5 new poll workers at every district with 2 experienced poll workers. Now, all these poll workers did come for training 2 weeks prior to the election. They were not only trained on the job that they were going to be assigned, but on absentee ballot processing, and they were given specific instructions. Throughout the day, when I would visit the polls, we started off in the morning reminding them of their specific directions to process the absentee ballots, because our goal is to get them in by 8 p.m. Okay, that is the goal. They were a little slow, I'd say, getting out of the gate, because now they're new and they're trying to feel comfortable in their assigned position. But as I visited throughout the day, they were not processing the absentee ballots. And I would say, okay, let's get this going, and they would get up to process them when I was there, but I have found out later when I left, they would stop. And the reason was they were uncomfortable. They did not want to interrupt the voters that were there in person in line. They also did get a few voters who were not happy about the processing of the absentee ballot. They felt they should be first before an envelope was processed. So being new, all these things played into their uncomfortableness, and they decided they would wait till the end of the voting to do that. That was never told to me while I visited the polls. I was They were processing them, and I knew they were doing it slow, but I didn't know they stopped. The third variable is split shifts. Typically, poll workers work the entire day, 15, 17-hour day. However, many of my new poll workers want to only work a half a day. That's okay, you know, we can cover the other half a day with someone else, but when it's new poll workers, they're barely getting into the rhythm, working with their partner, and now they're leaving that position, and someone new is coming in, and now they have to get into a new rhythm. It slows the process down. That all takes time, which means the voters in line get slowed down. At the end of the day, we still had voters in line at 8 o'clock. With a 37% turnout, that should not happen. So I'm looking at all the different factors and seeing what we can do differently. The fourth and final variable was 2 ballot styles. So not only do you have new poll workers learning everything, you have 2 ballot styles at 2 of the polls. This presents a whole nother set of procedures because they have to make sure the voter gets the right ballot. So there again, that slows down the process because each table has to communicate with each other. When you're registering new voters, you have to make sure you indicate when they get in line to go in the poll book, that it's indicated to the poll book people that they get a different ballot style. Then the poll book people have to make sure that there's an indication when they move over to the ballot table that they give them the right ballot. We worked with green stickers for that, and we thought the process was simple and that it would be without issue, but we did find out that both of those polls did miss less than 10, but nevertheless, they missed, giving some of those voters the right ballot style. All these things create an opportunity for me, a unique opportunity to look at the training processes, to look at the makeup of the few seasoned or experienced poll workers that I can use, and how to work better and interact with the new ones. And it also leads to working better with the chiefs who, to help them maybe feel comfortable being a little more assertive to get the processes going that need to get done during election day. Just a little play on some of the numbers. This was a total surprise to me that we were not done by 9:30, 10 o'clock. I expected all the polls to be closed and final by that time. So to have the one poll 12:15 in the morning was, I did not understand it. I have had some discussions with all the chiefs. We're going to have further discussions and also with staff on different things that we can do to remedy that. The new poll workers are nominated poll workers. So these were party nominated poll workers. And so I have to use them if they want to work. So I would never have put 21 new people in on election day, but they all wanted to work, so they all got to work. So I had hoped that the training, I simplified the training and sent them home with materials. I hope that would help, but it really apparently didn't. Poll workers want to do it right. And so when you're new, if you don't have a lot of experience, obviously, under your belt, right? The training, it's brand new training, and the first time you're working at a poll. You need several training sessions and several elections under your belt to feel comfortable. And when you're not comfortable, you go slower. They were also, they found it disturbing to see a line. A line is nothing. Our lines were 15 to 20 minutes long. That is not what I consider a line. But the new poll workers, that bothered them very much. And so, again, it's all about training and working with the new poll workers to help them learn how they can adjust to it. And I am looking forward to having the opportunity to rethink the processes here and come up with what I hope will be methods to help them get confident quicker, because that would help the polls. It would have helped tremendously. This was a first for me to have that many new people working. The most I'd ever had before was 2, 3 at the very most. So it does change the dynamics of how the poll works. Not making an excuse here, these were the variables, and I have recognized those, and I will look to make changes. And I want, obviously, successful elections. On that note, everything did balance, so the election was successful. The canvass results remain the same. There were no issues with the paperwork we turned into the county. The biggest issue was how long it took our last poll to get in. So,
Alderman Mulder?
So the reason you had 21 new workers was not because others who had worked in the past chose not to work, but because you needed to use them because they were appointed by the parties? Is that?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yes, I still have a large list of my experienced poll workers, but I must first offer the chance to work each election to the nominated, and then if they decline, then I can fill in with my experienced workers.
Had 21 nominated, so you took them all, or did you have more?
I had to, yes.
Do the nominated ones change frequently each year to year? Or do they tend to be the same people?
In the past, they've tended to be the same people, but in the past, I've had maybe 7. Now, this is a whole new list of nominated people. Another thing that happens is, most of the poll workers are seniors, and the last election we had was April of 2021. So we have a whole year, and now the chief hasn't worked in a year, and they have all these new people, and they're trying to make sure they're doing the job correctly, so they weren't really focusing on the absentee ballots a lot. I will tell you that I did an average, I found this quite interesting, of the last 6 April elections, and the average voter turnout is 37.6. We had 37%. So it's not like we haven't dealt with these numbers before. We have, and we have easily, closed it out by 9, 10 o'clock at night. There's just these other variables. The 2 ballot styles didn't help. They didn't like our process with the green stickers, the poll workers. So we have to look at something different to help them be more accurate, So, we look at every election. We basically debrief every election, but this one was unusual.
Well, thank you. Any other comments or questions from council? Alderman Spiegelberg.
Thanks a lot for all your hard work and to everyone who was involved in helping. The comments that I had from District 1, obviously there were some people there from 2 and 3 that were mixed up, because now they're in 2 or they're in 3, and they got the postcard because I was listening to the poll workers asking them, well, you should have gotten a postcard in the mail. But they were very kind at redirecting them and sending them off to the right place. Some of the questions I've had from District 1, though, since we went away from Greenfield School to the public safety building, they feel like it's taking longer to get through. I seem to remember that when we were at Greenland School, there were 2 different lines with the 2 different chunks of alphabet, and now it feels like there's one now that we're funneling through, and it seems to take longer. So I don't know if that's something that can be remedied, but.
Because our city has grown so much and the number of registered voters in each district has grown, basically 3,000 in each, we had always before on the smaller elections had 1 set of poll books, and the larger elections, we broke it up alphabetically, so there's 2 sets. I am thinking heavily that we are probably going to now have to always split the poll books due to the number of voters that could potentially turn out. 37% is not a high number, especially, like I said, you have 15 to 20-minute lines getting through 1 set of poll books. It will help obviously in the larger elections. But some of the issues, it really comes down to training and the comfort level of the poll workers. And, you know, again, and I didn't really think of that as a factor, but the moving of people from districts due to the redistricting, they were just going to the poll they thought they belonged to, and that takes time for the workers because they're looking them up in the book and saying, oh, you're not in this book. So that holds up the line as well. And when, you know, the training I give always is focus on one voter at a time. Don't worry about the voter behind that voter, because you can become overwhelmed if you keep seeing 5, 10, 20 people in line. Like, this is never ending. And I don't want the workers to feel that way. So just focus on the task at hand. But I think, again, it takes some experience, more elections under their belt for those new poll workers to feel that way.
No, I really appreciate the update, and
Yeah.
moving forward, are there any other questions from council for Ms. Conan? The vital part of what you do, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and I'm always happy to answer election questions. Thank you.
Let's move on to the parks update. Mr. Hepner?
Also happy to answer any election questions you have.
Thank you.
Works. This thing on. All right. First off, I want to thank Chaz and Matt. They've served the Parks and Recreation Board for 2 years. Hopefully it was the best 2 years of your life. Welcome to Jennifer and Matt, joining the best board in the city. So thank you for that. I want to go through a few projects. Just the mayor asked me to give some updates, and I think it's important. So it's 10:35. I'll try and be done by 10:38. First one is back to Rockwell Park. So we talked a little bit about it before, but some updates. So bids for Phase 1 construction will be going out in 2 weeks and coming back to the council in the first meeting of June for hopefully good bid prices. Construction to start sometime later this summer and into the fall, coinciding with also the work we have to do with the dam restoration. At the same time, during the summer, we'll be working on design for Phase 2. That'll be coming back to you soon. And then construction planned probably for spring of 2023. As I mentioned, the Friends Group right now is $142,000. They want to get to at least $550,000 in private donations. So with that, the grant and the current city money, we think we'll get to that point. So you will see activity. We've recently met. They went to the park, the Friends Group went to the Parks and Recreation Board last meeting, and they're kind of rekindling their efforts. So you'll see things going on in the community. So that's Rockwell Park update. Northeast Regional Park, you know about the pickleball courts. We're looking to breaking ground early June. I just received their bid, bonds, and contracts today. So we'll get that going. We're also working with RM and Kevin Freeber at the wastewater plant on the restroom, pavilion, concessions building, and that'll be going hopefully out for bid coming up this summer. Working with Lori on a park impact fee study. So that'll be going forward. Now we went through the park and open space plan. This is the next step to get that back and up and running and get it up to speed. Also presented a first draft of a bike and ped plan to the park board back in March. And so we'll start getting some feedback on that and starting to list priority projects for trails and bike and ped improvements. Village green restrooms is an important one. We took your feedback back in February, made some changes, brought that forward to the Architectural Commission in April, and they approved it as a 3-fixture, which is 3 toilets basically, each side, each gender, and 1 sink, so it doesn't come so far into the park. That's where it's at the present moment. The next step would be bringing this to council for discussion, and we're going to tie it also to the Rockwell Partners project. Obviously makes a lot of sense. Talk about Village Green, both projects at the same time, and make some good decisions. So that'll be coming up next month. And a couple other quick items, things we've done in the past but are finally coming to fruition. The swim raft replacement, they're in, and they'll be coming into the beach in mid-May in time for swim lessons and swimming. We also have the shade structure that we approved, a 3rd one now. Our staff has put the post in, the concrete, and that'll be going up for the swim season. Skate park, we have a number of things to add to that yet, including lighting, cameras, the shade structure, and that's all lined up to start in May, and probably June we'll have that completed, along with a donor sign and other things. So the skate park should be up and, well, it's up and running, but it'll be completed, hopefully by June.
I think it's up and rolling.
Up and rolling, thank you. Hopefully staying up and not falling down. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Thanks to our staff again for everything they do. They let me play with the projects and become project manager, but they handle all the maintenance, all the recreation, registrations, all the rentals, everything else goes on. They don't need much help from me. Luckily, we have great staff, so thanks to them for keeping things moving. So any questions on the few things I touched on?
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your attention at
Great.
10:38.
We're going to move on to the budget calendar. Excitement. Ms. Sullivan Murray.
Of the budget calendar for this year. This is so you can get them on your calendars plenty ahead of time. You're not finding out at the last minute or anything. What we're trying to do this year is keep on schedule, get you the dates out here to begin with. So as usual, we'll be looking at the capital budget first, and that'll start the middle of July. I do have budget books distributed 2 weeks in advance. It's actually 16 days in advance. So hopefully that'll help you out a little bit before we start our workshops. One of the things about getting the budget books out to you 2 weeks before we have a workshop, one of the things I mentioned to the Finance Committee earlier, a few months ago, when we were putting this budget calendar together, it's gonna compress the time a little bit in November. So what we're looking to do is go back to what we used to do and have the public hearing and budget adoption on the same day, which is November 15th. That's our, whatever meeting day is closest to the 15th, because that's our drop dead time to do it. And in order for us to have time to have these budget workshops and have time for you to have the budgets ahead of time, we need a little bit more time before the public hearing. Public hearing needs to be in the paper twice. The way we have the papers are once a week. So yeah, it takes some time. And to get that public hearing in, to have it early in November, it has to be in way early in October. And you've barely seen the budget and we're putting something in the paper, and that's not a good idea. So I'd like to be able to put it in the paper after you've had a chance to vet through it some, so the paper aligns more with what we're actually going to vote on. So if you have any questions on the calendar, let me know. If there's any huge problems with the calendar, let the mayor know. But this is hopefully so we can plan ahead and get as many people here at the workshops as we can.
And just to add on to that, the Finance Committee, Lori's going to be reaching out to you because we're going to start doing quarterly financial reviews, as was discussed in the past. So
I'm
we
looking
just
to
have
do
find the
a
times that will work and a way in which we can go through that. So we're getting that implemented.
an early May meeting to get caught up.
Is it possible the budget gets adopted earlier than November 15th?
No, because the public hearing has to happen. Okay. You can be done. You don't have to have more workshops, but because of timing with the public hearing, we will approve it on the second meeting in November. Okay? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other staff meetings, Mark, that are not put in here? Okay, great. Move on to any reports or comments from aldermen. I think this goes down as one of our longest meetings, so thank you all.
Wait, I do.
Yes, Alderman Ellis.
I want to go ahead and welcome the new alderman.
Yeah.
Gonna have lots of fun. And this is probably one of the earlier ones, right? We usually get at about 12, 1 in that area there, so, right, yeah. So welcome.
Thank you. And and I'll be very brief, just want to thank all of you that did reach out and welcomed me and congratulated me, and it was a very warm welcome, so I appreciate that.
Good.
But if you're responsible for this, we're not gonna keep that welcome going.
I don't have any other comments as mayor, other than a proclamation to read. I'm going to go forward with that for the Arbor Day proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting trees. And whereas this holiday to be called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of topsoil by wind, water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature,
clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And trees are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas Oconomowoc has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation for now 29 years and deserves to continue its tree planting ways and desires. Excuse me. Now therefore, I, Robert P. Magna, Mayor of the City of Oconomowoc, do hereby proclaim April 29th as Arbor Day in the City of Oconomowoc, and I urge all citizens to support efforts to plant and care for our trees and woodlands and to support our city's community forestry program. This is dated April 19th, 2022. Thank you very much. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for all the people that stayed late.
All right.